In this magical world, the incompetent were always eliminated. Power was essential for humans to gain wealth, fame, and position in life. The male protagonist always believed that everyone had at least one survival skill or ability, and that if they didn't, it was only because they hadn't yet discovered it. Then, as he faced the powerful monsters, his thinking was entirely shattered. He recalled back to the times when he had been mocked by his teammates and helpless to do anything. Additionally, his girlfriend had demanded a breakup and had treated him like an F-list scrapper. There was no place for losers in this terrible world. The male protagonist was despondent and did not require ability since he had something stronger, which was the memory of 99,000 previous lives. Shields, swordsmanship, singing, and even bodybuilding were all pouring through him. His body was being infused with historical figures such as Romandi, the immortal emperor; Nashashin, a master of black magic; Danzig, unable to defend himself; Reaper, a bloodthirsty killer; and numerous other strong spirits who would help him rule the entire world. And this was the story of the pitiful F-rank hunter Kong Hung-joon, who abruptly awoke from 99,000 previous lifetimes. Kong Hung-joon, an F-rank hunter, was forced into a fight with skeletal monsters after being unable to locate them, and the dungeon's entrance abruptly closed. He was surrounded by high-level monsters, but he wasn't going to die here. He picked up his sword with a will to never yield, and then that determination was recognized. A voice suddenly sounded in his head. His past life had crossed the limits, and he decided to intervene. The last swordsman, Sidon Miller, poured a powerful current of power into Hung-joon's body, and the holy sword's soul and Hung-joon's body united into one, pushing his fighting spirit and strength to their peak. Everything appeared to be going smoothly until suddenly Hung-joon woke up with his body covered in wounds. His teammates then described what had happened in the dungeon. He had been hit by a monster and consumed all of his medicine before being struck by a stone and passing out. As a result, it took them much longer to complete the conquest. Hung-joon clenched his teeth and criticized them for using him as the monster's bait, but the other guy's words later prevented Hung-joon from saying anything else because it was Hung-joon who agreed to participate in the battle as the bait. Prior to joining the hunter team, Hung-joon had boldly declared that he could accomplish anything successfully. However, the truth is always harsh, and as a result, he was scorned by his teammates and expelled from the team. In this world, where dungeons, monsters, and conquests first emerged, those who awakened their abilities would become hunters to discover dungeons. They would then be ranked according to their skills and accomplishments. In a society where rank was important, Kong Hung-joon was only an F-rank hunter. Bottom hunters like him were treated with disdain on a daily basis, but he was able to endure it because he had a stunning girlfriend in HyeonJoon. Hung-joon enthusiastically talked to HyeonJoon, but HyeonJoon was still focused on her phone. Today was their first anniversary, and Hung-joon had planned a special gift for his girlfriend. However, HyeonJoon's following words left Hung-joon speechless. HyeonJoon expressed her intention to end the relationship and attempted to leave, but Hung-joon stopped her. HyeonJoon stated with a disdainful expression that she and Hung-joon were both F classes a year ago, but that she was now in the C class, significantly higher than Hung-joon, and she ultimately left without any sign of regret. Hung-joon sat miserably on a park seat, calling Sukgyu out to confide in since only Sukgyu could make Hung-joon feel better. However, from the look on Sukgyu's face, it appeared as though Sukgyu was mocking Hung-joon. There was already alcohol around, so Sukgyu bought Hung-joon a dinner at the convenience store and did not forget to add salt to his wounds. Although Sukgyu was kidding, it wasn't at all wrong. Hung-joon believed that everyone had secret potential and that he would awaken his latent skills sooner or later, but he didn't know how much longer he could attempt. A blonde man approached Hung-joon at this point and said he felt great potential in him. He then smiled evilly and asked if Hung-joon believed in his past lives because he could feel the great spirits emanating from Hung-joon and claimed the strongest warriors and horsemen in human history had been very close to Hung-joon. That man then added that it wouldn't matter if Hung-joon sought strength, and that for the time being he could just inform Hung-joon. The rest would be up to Hung-joon to decide. Sukgyu bought more alcohol, and the two drank till the evening because Hung-joon was lovelorn today, so he drank a lot and had to ask Sukgyu to carry him home. When Hung-joon opened the door and entered, a rapid light erupted from the space, and the spirit of the first hero, Carthago, the shield of justice that protected the north of the great empire and Hung-joon's old life, appeared. Hung-joon was startled by what he saw. But after recalling the words of the elderly blonde man in the park, he realized that things were starting to come together. Then, all of a sudden, the hero said to HyeonJoon, "It doesn't matter whether you believe me or not because you would soon be able to experience it firsthand and because I had already noticed you, Kong HyeonJoon. And even if I have to tear you apart 100,000 times with this lance, I would imbue you with my will." HyeonJoon wasn't sure what was going on as Carthago proceeded to threaten HyeonJoon with bathing in his blood and flesh if he dared ruin the hero's reputation. Carthago then stabbed HyeonJoon in the belly with his spear. HyeonJoon then dropped to the ground in pain, asking Carthage why he had done this to him. Carthago replied that pain was an old acquaintance with this body, and the perverted way of thinking in HyeonJoon's head was unimportant because the spear wouldn't kill him. HyeonJoon's psyche would be tormented to the farthest degree in this illusory dimension, and without Carthage's consent, he would never be able to leave. Even if he wanted to die, he couldn't. HyeonJoon then stared at the door and hurried towards it, thinking that if he simply got through the door, everything would be back to normal, but Carthago's words made him reconsider. HyeonJoon was questioned about whether he was running once more by Carthago. Carthago claimed that HyeonJoon lacked the bravery to confront death. It was so vile, as well as the strength to fight himself. As a result, HyeonJoon had lost his lover and his self-respect. Carthage stated that if HyeonJoon wanted to continue in this manner, he could, and Carthago was ashamed to have HyeonJoon as his flesh and blood. HyeonJoon retorted angrily, "You know nothing about me." Despite the fact that he lacked skill, he always believed that if he worked hard enough, one day everything would be alright. However, the bitter reality was that, no matter how hard he tried, he was unable to get better. Carthago was happy with HyeonJoon's expression now. Carthago was HyeonJoon's past existence, appearing here to pass on the will so that no one could stomp on HyeonJoon anymore and lead him to the top of the world. This was followed by the blessings of 99,000 past lives. Sidon Miller, Hope, Romandy, Siren, Hannah, Pantheon, and many more spirits who were here to aid. Nevertheless, HyeonJoon's ability to get stronger was still dependent on his own determination. HyeonJoon snatched up the shield that was lying on the ground in order to block Carthagon's strike even once. As soon as the spear swept forward, Carthagon slashed the shield aside and swiftly stabbed a lethal blow. This incredible power was worthy of the hero of antiquity. He then commanded HyeonJoon to pick up the shield and carry on the battle, but HyeonJoon's memory was slowly fading, and he had likely been struck by a lance more than 100 times by this point. After more than 2,500 unsuccessful efforts, HyeonJoon eventually mastered the use of a shield. This time, Carthago focused all of his strength on the spear and released a massive amount of power. HyeonJoon took advantage of the situation and flew the spear away. Carthago was now able to gladly disappear because HyeonJoon's body had learned all 24 of the fundamental moves and how to block the opponent's attack. HyeonJoon awoke from drunkenness to a phone call from Seogyu, who informed him that he had a work schedule at a C-class dungeon. Seokgyu would send HyeonJoon the address, but first HyeonJoon needed to arrange certain items. HyeonJoon thought everything that occurred during the battle with Carthago was a strange dream. Despite the fact that the body had no visible wounds, the dream seemed too real, so he put on his gear and fled the area. The shield that Carthago had used in the battle was also present, and the desire to fight once more filled HyeonJoon's body. As HyeonJoon arrived at the appointed spot, he ran into his ex-girlfriend HyeonJoon again. She had recently broken up with HyeonJoon but already had a new boyfriend. This jerk Sangchul even mocked HyeonJoon's shield, but HyeonJoon didn't have the courage to reply to his harsh words. The squad managed to reach the dungeon entrance, but as soon as they opened it, HyeonJoon felt as though he was about to be stabbed. As if in a dream, and just then, a powerful spear rushed at them, striking HyeonJoon. However, Carthago, the shield of justice, was shielding HyeonJoon, and nothing could hurt him as long as he was under Carthago's protection. When the smoke and dust finally cleared, everyone became panicked. Suddenly, a skeleton charged at them from the darkness, and Sunchul gave the command to set up a defensive formation because this was a high-level monster with an army of powerful skeletons. HyeonJoon chanted the magic, and the squad immediately attacked, dashing at the monsters with all of their might. Fortunately, the team was able to escape the chase, but one member of the team was killed. The skeleton army was only meant to arrive in the B-class dungeons, but there was an army at the C-class gate, and people started to consider retreating and going back home, preferring to be fined rather than lose their lives. The moment HyeonJoon touched the door, his face became terrified, and the door was locked. Possibly this was a type of dungeon that automatically locked the door, and they had to conquer it to be able to leave. HyeonJoon was terrified and hugged Sangchul. Even though HyeonJoon had just broken up with HyeonJoon, she nevertheless had fun with someone else in front of HyeonJoon. The team kept on conquering, and Sangchul wanted to take a break, but Sungsu prevented him because something seemed terribly off about this place. A skeleton soldier suddenly charged over, knocked Sungsu to the ground, and killed him instantaneously. HyeonJoon assumed that this was a general skeleton, which made HyeonJoon fearful and lose her will to fight. The monster raced at HyeonJoon, but despite the danger, he deflected it. He could easily read its movements. Carthago's shield techniques were racing through HyeonJoon's thoughts. He needed to block the attack, aim at the opening point to attack, and strike once the skeleton soldier lost balance. This hit broke the soldier's head. Sangchul's side wasn't like that. He was fiercely attacked by the army and murdered shortly thereafter. But HyeonJoon regained his fighting spirit, routinely destroyed the foe in front of him, and his strength gradually grew. Everyone else was dead, while HyeonJoon was left alive. She started to apologize to HyeonJoon and wanted to rekindle their previous relationship, but at this point, HyeonJoon's eyes were filled with disdain. They halted when they came to a strange door, and HyeonJoon unlocked it while also reminding HyeonJoon to pay attention to safety. However, HyeonJoon was different in that she just needed a shield to defend herself, meaning she was depending on him to survive and escape from the current circumstances. She wanted HyeonJoon to walk in front and follow behind since there was a bridge in front of them. Being such a cunning woman, HyeonJoon got up the bridge without saying anything. He moved forward a little and instructed her to follow. HyeonJoon gently moved on the bridge without any defense, unaware that HyeonJoon had set up a trap for her. HyeonJoon didn't realize that there was a monster in the river. A monster raced out of the sea and bit HyeonJoon hard on the neck. HyeonJoon feigned to put out his hand to help, then nonchalantly watched her being eaten by the monsters. The monsters weren't even aware HyeonJoon existed because he was protected by spirits. He then boldly opened the next door. The soul that had previously entered him had now naturally gone as well. His body gradually began to return to its normal state until he suddenly recovered consciousness without realizing what had happened. He had been entirely controlled by the spirit earlier, and now he didn't know what to do but beat on the door for help. HyeonJoon turned to check behind him, and there were troops brandishing weapons, so HyeonJoon formally opted to fight a war for survival with his initial spirit and sword in hand. At this point, he appeared to turn into a war god, attacking the enemies alone while deftly dodging their blows and blocking them with his shield. A slash killed a soldier, but the soldier was blown away after that enormous explosion and began bleeding on his head. His body was getting tired, and this was the scene at the beginning of the video we had ever seen. HyeonJoon then got up strongly once more, refusing to allow himself to become weak this time. As the hero's spirit observed HyeonJoon's will to fight, it made the decision to step in, and Sidon Miller, the final holy swordsman, officially joined the fight. The atmosphere in the room gradually altered, and the skeleton warriors began to swing their swords in preparation for an attack. HyeonJoon awoke and grasped the blade with ease, at which point Miller's spirit took control of HyeonJoon's body. The entire body was encircled by a green energy source, and a strong sword path was extended to slice the front reinforcement. But after that strike, HyeonJoon's body was incredibly weakened, and shortly after, Sidon Miller's soul mysteriously left. HyeonJoon then passed out. Sidon Miller's soul was back at the debate table. Carthago was furious at their self-possession because it should have been his turn this time, but the two of them were quicker. Carthago felt they shouldn't help HyeonJoon so thoroughly since it would prevent him from learning anything. The soul of a girl, who represented the god of music, also came to this place. Everyone was very confident in this appearance, and despite being a child, HyeonJoon had a very strong fighting spirit. While everyone was talking, the girl crept out the door, planning to enter HyeonJoon's body, but was prevented by Carthago because he would go to battle this time. After escaping from the struggle for survival, Carthago confronted HyeonJoon. He wasn't happy with HyeonJoon's faulty thinking. He claimed rank F was fine and that it was reasonable to feel self-conscious, but there was one thing Carthago wouldn't permit HyeonJoon to do: run away. Carthago stabbed his spear into the ground, and a vast source of strength was emitted. When he swiped his spear towards the sky, space was distorted, and a crack in the sky was seen in front of HyeonJoon. Carthago gave HyeonJoon a mana crystal, also known as the heart of the monster. In the dimension of HyeonJoon's planet, humans used it as a source of energy, but it could be used for other purposes that called forth a monster. HyeonJoon would have to battle it in the near future. This would be his second training session. As the goblin started to attack, Hyung-sung had to raise his shield to defend himself. Though his posture seemed to be okay, his response time was a little slow. The goblin swung the wooden stick at him with such power that he was flung aside, repeatedly assaulting him, and the wounds grew more and more. HyeonJoon had died 5, 10, 20, 50, and now 80 times. His body was in terrible pain. Attacking with a shield required swinging outward, making it difficult to reach the target. Observing everything, HyeonJoon realized that this monster was unquestionably stronger than him and that it frequently changed its assault strategy. As a result, if he could not defeat it in one blow, he would die. HyeonJoon flew up high and focused his strength on the shield, then unleashed a massive blow, punching straight at the goblin. It tried to parry the strike but was absolutely ineffective. Its body was slashed into two, and HyeonJoon was finally able to destroy it. He glared wearily at Carthago before passing out. After HyeonJoon awoke, he was in a cave safe and sound, his body unharmed despite the intense conflict. A mana crystal was in front of him. He picked it up and intended to sell it. The door in front of him appeared to be the last one. Entering revealed a space that was much cleaner than the outside, but in the darkness hid a pair of frightening eyes. A dreadful sound rang out, and it was the bones of a king skeleton soldier. Thus, without much thought, HyeonJoon snatched up his shield and prepared to fight. He pondered if he could prevail, but Carthago's voice jolted him awake. HyeonJoon had complete faith in himself, and Carthago's protection was fully active. An enormous stream of force flowed through his body, and he rushed to attack first. HyeonJoon was going to engage the monster head-on, but he paused. That style of fighting didn't seem appropriate for this high-level monster. First, he should separate himself to identify its weak point. But the monster attacked unexpectedly, a long slash cutting swiftly towards him. HyeonJoon pulled out his shield, but the strike was too powerful for him to entirely deflect, causing his body to crash into the wall. He then painfully stood up, having only enough mana for 2 more blows. While the monster continued to swing strong slashes, HyeonJoon leapt backwards. Each strike was lethal, but he seemed to be able to dodge. When the monster fell to the ground and made a hole, HyeonJoon swiftly seized the opportunity, swinging his shield and slicing the monster's arm forcefully. Despite his success in doing so, the monster did not feel the pain, so the struggle went on. It slashed madly at HyeonJoon, each slash exact and devastating. The fact that there was a shield that slowed the attack only eased some of the pain. The monster's attack power rose with speed, but it was still nothing in comparison to Carthago's spear. HyeonJoon would charge in, using his shield as a launchpad for an attack. Now that he could only risk his life, he slashed the monster's legs with the last of his mana. The blow was so powerful that it caused the creature to fall to its knees on the ground before collapsing entirely. It tried to get up, but it appeared that this would be the end of the fight. HyeonJoon was able to take down a king skeleton soldier. 3 days had passed since the Gate of Area A first appeared, and since there had been no news that it had been conquered, the organization's members assumed that all of HyeonJoon's squad had died. They were mentally preparing for the monster to come out, but instead a figure of a person, HyeonJoon, who had wounds all over his body, showed up. He claimed that the other members had all passed away, at which point Park Jeong-ho, a member of the dungeon administration, demanded that he provide his hunting license. Jeong-ho raced straight to the administration to report once he saw Hyung-sung's hunter card. He informed the chief that it appeared that a hunter had likely been reawakened. The department director was shocked to learn this news, and Park Ho continued by revealing that the only person to survive coming out of a B-rank dungeon was an F-rank hunter by the name of Kong HyeonJoon. Even though he was a little shocked, the chief did not think that the F-rank individual could awaken a second time because S-rank hunters were few and far between when it came to experiencing this process. Park Ho, on the other hand, believed in what he observed and decided to examine the issue himself. HyeonJoon awoke from his coma and fell asleep again. This time, however, it felt very different from when he encountered Carthago. Darkness filled the entire place. That person was HyeonJoon's other past life. He was supposed to be Sidon Miller, but HyeonJoon's soul stole him. HyeonJoon took a short-cut to meet HyeonJoon to show him that he was much more helpful than others as HyeonJoon faced the impending dangers, and he then started teaching HyeonJoon a lesson. HyeonJoon's spirit was the embodiment of darkness, a power that was the exact opposite of light, and his body dissolved in the fog. HyeonJoon would now go for HyeonJoon's heart, and if HyeonJoon could parry even one hit, the lesson would be finished. The swords steadily rose from the ground and began to attack HyeonJoon rapidly, and after thousands of deaths and resurrections, he finally completed the death course. The stronger he became, the easier it would be for him to become involved in nefarious activities, such as the shady behavior of the Intelligence Society. Returning to the present, HyeonJoon headed to the company's lobby to exchange products. He planned to sell the mana crystals and inspect the shield for a profit of over 20 million won and a 1 million won appraisal fee. Because there were no checkers available at the time, he had to wait a little longer. HyeonJoon gave the female inspector his hunter's license, and she instructed him to wait for a bit. Soon after, she called a certain company and let them know HyeonJoon was there. On Jung Sungmin's side, the director was concerned for Hyejin's safety because she hadn't responded to his messages in a while. He immediately gave the juniors permission to check the dungeon, and after speaking with the dungeon manager over the phone, Hyung-sok informed the director that every hunter who had entered the dungeon had died. His face became extremely angry. Sok then said that there was still a survivor of the punishment, and that was Kang HyeonJoon, who was waiting to have the shield checked. At this point, Park Ho approached HyeonJoon and stated that they needed to sit down on a chair nearby to talk. He proceeded to say that the investigation had gone without any problems and pulled HyeonJoon's risk card from his pocket. For HyeonJoon, the transition from F-class to C-class was already the best turning point. Kang HyeonJoon, the last person to survive in the dungeon, was to be captured and brought here, according to the chairman Sungmin's instructions. HyeonJoon joyfully celebrated with senior Seogyu, who was now quite popular in the dungeon administration. It was believed that an F-class hunter working as a porter was the lone survivor of a C-class dungeon. This was quite outstanding among hunters, while there were a few more unusual cases that were comparable to each other, not many, but all of them were second awakening hunters. Han Jin-woo, an SS-level hunter, was the most well-known of them all. Today, when people think of Asura, they think of the top society in the nation. Han Ji-woo was also the only person to have survived the dungeon and was the second hunter to awaken. He then joined the Asura Guild and rose to become the highest-ranking hunter in the country. According to rumors, he had a not-so-sociable attitude, was incredibly strong, and preferred to work alone. Seogyu advised HyeonJoon to take care of himself because he had struggled ever since he was an orphan. Perhaps this was the memory he avoided talking about the most. HyeonJoon took Seogyu to the bus station. Seogyu was a little drunk. Before getting on the bus, he was still trying to reassure HyeonJoon that everything would be alright. HyeonJoon smiled cheerfully and swiftly walked home. Along the way, he spotted two individuals after him, so HyeonJoon's spirit overcame him. They didn't say anything but immediately pulled out their weapons and forced him to go with them, and while HyeonJoon seemed to be terrified, on the inside he was ecstatic. He smiled wickedly and claimed they'd made a big error. The assassin Cheon-ho instantly drew two assault swords towards HyeonJoon, two fatal slashes at the danger spot, but HyeonJoon easily dodged. HyeonJoon blended into the darkness, his form dissolving into smoke. The assassin kept swinging his knife towards HyeonJoon, but HyeonJoon stopped him. He then made an appearance from behind, his hand emitting black energy that pierced the assassin's heart. HyeonJoon then swiftly took one of the man's knives. The other man also started to move. He drew upon his many years of combat experience and hurriedly attacked towards HyeonJoon. But HyeonJoon avoided him gently. He was like a fog in the shadows until he emerged behind that man. It was at that point that that man's body had been gravely hurt. HyeonJoon asked the man who was responsible, but he of course would keep it a secret. However, this was also predicted by HyeonJoon, so HyeonJoon immediately killed him, after which HyeonJoon's darkness devoured the bodies of the other two people, erasing any traces of their presence in the area. HyeonJoon happily celebrated the victor's joy. Upon his return home, he was exhausted and fell asleep. The next morning, Seogyu contacted HyeonJoon and informed him that he had signed HyeonJoon up for a team. Upon hearing this, HyeonJoon left the bowl of noodles unfinished and immediately took a cab to work, but his car was unexpectedly struck by fire. The taxi carrying HyeonJoon was abruptly attacked, and flames struck the front of the car hard. HyeonJoon hurried out of the car, then the smoke was blown away, and a goblin magician showed up in front of him. This wasn't just one. It was an army of goblins storming out of the dungeon door as the wizard recited the spell and started to direct an attack. The goblins would attack everyone they came across. If that were the case, the neighborhood would be in chaos, so HyeonJoon paused for a moment before assaulting. He needed to knock down the leader immediately, but it was harder than he expected, as they kept blocking his advance. However, since he was no longer a weakling, HyeonJoon hurriedly approached the leader. As their strength contrasted, HyeonJoon moved aside, but the leader was already lying dead on the ground, assisted by a girl wielding a French sword. She felt sorry for HyeonJoon's talent and said that she didn't have much time left, so she asked him directly if he wanted to join her offensive squad. After handing her the business card, she hastily walked away. It was an invitation from the Ace Guild, which had gained a lot of popularity recently, but HyeonJoon had to take care of this thing before joining. Cries for help were coming from the underground mall, despite the rule that hunters had to join when the dungeon appeared. No matter how strong he was, it was still too risky to fight the goblins. He got the thought that if he did his job effectively, he might be able to reach the SS rank like Han Jin-woo, but he quickly dismissed it and went into the mall, which was in ruins after being set on fire. As soon as HyeonJoon saw evidence of the bodies being cleaned up, someone who was badly hurt emerged from the building and attempted to warn HyeonJoon to get out. This time the dungeon seemed strange, as if someone had intervened. Suddenly, a group of assassins appeared here, infuriating HyeonJoon, who demanded to know whose organization they belonged to. A person said they were the Eco Guild's enforcement squad, and this got them angry. The subordinates began to assault. The slashes were quite sharp but did not make it difficult for HyeonJoon at all. He was adept at avoiding attacks, even in the dark. At this moment, he also brought out the sword from his side. He dodged the attacks while watching for their weaknesses, and then he blocked that guy's final slash. Following the fatal slash block, they started to charge at each other, but HyeonJoon stopped them with a delicate shield swing that quickly defeated one of them. Then he brought out his sword and killed another opponent, who panicked but didn't dare rush before also falling to HyeonJoon's sword. HyeonJoon rapidly killed 3 of them, leaving only the ringleader. Realizing he had little chance of winning, the leader devised an idea to temporarily leave. After the leader launched a smoke bomb, he sprinted to attack, but his aim was on the injured hunter behind him. HyeonJoon didn't give the leader a chance and struck the sword directly into the man's body before slicing across his abdomen. HyeonJoon defeated the entire execution team by himself. His strength appeared to grow significantly. The hunter next to him was shocked by this bizarre event, and he then inquired about HyeonJoon's name and rank. The level didn't really matter to HyeonJoon. He simply left his name and turned to leave, but before he could move, the man called him back. His name was Kim Tae-min, and he was the leader of the execution team for the renowned guild race. After giving it some thought, HyeonJoon made the decision to call Tae-min. As soon as Tae-min heard HyeonJoon's voice, he gleefully hurried downstairs to the office. The two then went to a local cafe and began talking. After discussing everything about the guild, Tae-min gave HyeonJoon something, which was a special space bag. As a result, HyeonJoon got suspicious and wondered if Tae-min had something he wanted to ask HyeonJoon. And as HyeonJoon had anticipated, this was a request from the race guild. Tae-min was requesting HyeonJoon to save their race guild since he had previously seen HyeonJoon's incredible abilities, and now he was certain of HyeonJoon's abilities. Tae-min bowed and asked HyeonJoon for help. At that point, HyeonJoon's mind was unexpectedly interrupted by a voice. It was from another powerful soul. He wanted HyeonJoon to accept the request this time, but he needed to hear from the race guild first. They would shortly participate in a private fight with the Eco Guild. This battle was between the enforcement teams, but unlike regular matches, there was no referee, so participants were free to kill one another. Despite obtaining the blessing of death, HyeonJoon firmly declined. The space bag could be very wonderful, but he could be slain at any time, making it too risky for this lethal offer. Tae-min, on the other hand, had complete faith in HyeonJoon and was eventually able to persuade him to join. HyeonJoon went to the administration to enter the dungeon, but rank C was already full, In order to enter higher-level dungeons, one must be accompanied by an official assault team member or a hunter of level A or higher. Upon talking about the attacking squad, HyeonJoon thought about the girl from the Ace Guild who had been here at his invitation. HyeonJoon then got right to the point and inquired as to whether the official dungeon attack team had a set schedule. There was no set time, but they would shortly begin a B-level conquest, in which he may take part as an experience. HyeonJoon, dressed in fine clothing, stood in front of the home early the next morning. At this time, a luxury car arrived and invited him into the car. The big guild's offensive squad was truly classy. HyeonJoon stepped out of the car like an official member, and in front of him stood the Ace Guild's attack team, which included the A-level magical world hunter Choi Han-sok, Yisul's older brother, and especially a Sisgon. His personality was similar to his sister's, and he was continually urging HyeonJoon to join their guild. When another team member called HyeonJoon away, he pulled out a sword and gave it to him. Even though it was only a loan, it was much better than what HyeonJoon was using. Since the level of the dungeon they were entering was B, the difficulty had increased significantly, so it was important to have strong weapons. Choi Han briefly discussed their strategy, stating that HyeonJoon, along with member Jin Hung, would be in the back to support his colleagues, while Yisul and her brother would be in the middle to fight long range and take out foes. The other two tankers would stand in front, and the remaining Gwangbei would raid in the dark. Everything was ready, and Han-sok formally opened the dungeon gate. The crew encountered an attacking enemy upon entering the dungeon. They were psychic monsters. Han-sok rapidly recited spells and defeated a large number of monsters, but this enraged the others. The squad began to engage in furious combat, with each member taking on their very own duties. They battled systematically, as they had done in countless previous encounters. Han-sok in the center launched tremendous energy rays, killing a lot of monsters. The team was so good that HyeonJoon rolled his eyes in surprise. The team was so amazing that HyeonJoon rolled his eyes in astonishment. The low-level monsters had been dispatched, leaving just the last boss. This would undoubtedly be a challenge for the whole team. Surroundings were unusually quiet as the team stood in front of the last door. A scary look appeared in the darkness. The monster attacked Gwangbei. That is Nightmare, a spacetime monster with strong fighting power. There were about 12 in total. Even though they were B-level hunters, this number was still a bit too much for them. Tanker began to fight back. Han-sok also became more serious. He clenched his fist and emitted terrible energy. A straight punch to the ground, its power is quite strong. Although the number of monsters decreased after that move, the team's stamina was gradually depleted. This moment is when the male lead HyeonJoon makes his move. If we can't go out now, it will be very dangerous for the whole team. Hero Dan Ji-hee's will penetrates his body. HyeonJoon rushes into the monsters alone. You are stronger than anyone here right now. One sword kills one monster. Reflexes are also extremely sharp. Adding help from Han-sok further increased his fighting spirit to its peak. He quickly dealt with the remaining two monsters. The whole team was tired, but the boss still hadn't appeared. HyeonJoon felt something coming, and sure enough, it was another attack. He took out his shield to block, but the blow was so strong that he lost feeling in his hand. At this time, Dan Ji-hee's soul continued to buff his recovery ability. His strength suddenly became stronger again. Yisul's attack buff time is 5 minutes, which is enough for him to defeat the boss. HyeonJoon alone faced it head-on. He slashed his sword once and it also attacked back in one stroke. But the weight it causes is still too great. HyeonJoon is forced to think of another way to destroy it. Maybe he'll give up the magic stone and smash the nucleus. HyeonJoon immediately rushed up. With a strong slash on the monster's body, magic stones appeared. Seizing this good opportunity, he slashed the magic stone. The victory belongs to HyeonJoon. This is the power of the Second Awakener. Despite winning, Gwangbei was seriously injured. HyeonJoon also didn't want to bother, so he greeted everyone and went outside first. After the battle, the reward he received was 50 million won. He was tired and fell asleep. The soul of the last sword saint was waiting for him. Hung stepped inside the soul of the holy knight. In front of him was a sword that emitted infinite energy. He held the sword in his hand. It was much more beautiful than the swords he had used. Stepping out from the darkness, the sword saint Sidon Miller appeared. It was the first time the two met, but HyeonJoon felt very familiar. Before that, he used the Holy Sword skill set to destroy the skeleton soldiers. HyeonJoon remembered the feeling of manipulating mana, the flow of energy surrounding his body. Like when using the older shield, the mana flow will circulate into the sword, creating a layer of ki on the outside. Only this time it's much harder than the shield. Sidon Miller comes to help. He regulated the mana source in his body, then pushed it all into the sword, creating a tremendous flow of mana. But suddenly receiving a large amount of power caused his body to suffer a lot of backlash. They called it a conflict of magic power. If that was reality, he would be dead. HyeonJoon still wants to keep trying. Seems like he just wants to get stronger quickly. After many mana transfers, it seemed that he used the older blade perfectly. The first step has been completed. All that remains is Sidon Miller's swordsmanship. He will pass on swordsmanship to you. Beautiful swords were slashed. Sharp, flexible, powerful, without a redundant movement. It is so perfect that there is not a single gap. Each sword path is closely linked with each other. Move to dodge, while launching swords perfectly. All these moves, if HyeonJoon can master it, nothing can stop him, and then HyeonJoon embarks on training. He had passed Carthago's training, so his confidence was greatly enhanced, and after a period of hard training their meeting time was over. HyeonJoon returns to the real world, while Sidon Miller is unusually serious. He went to a nearby forest to practice swordsmanship. Remembering those perfect swords, HyeonJoon started copying. The battle with the Eco Guild was about to take place. He had to train hard in order to win. With Miller's swordsmanship, he was completely capable of that. The day of the battle with the Eco Guild has also arrived. HyeonJoon sat in the guild car to the venue. He seriously asked the number of members that could participate, including himself, 2 B rankers and 4 C ranks. As for the Eco Guild, they would probably join this battle with all their might. The fate of the race will be decided by HyeonJoon, because only he can bring them victory. Their car went to the venue. HyeonJoon also changed into another outfit. He could feel the killing intent around him. It looked like there was an ambush here. From the moment they arrived at this place, the battle between the two guilds had officially begun. HyeonJoon rushes to another place. He will deal with the ambush guys ahead. Pulling out 2 swords from the air, he quickly killed 2 nearby enemies, killing one each with 1 slash. The Eco Guild couldn't afford to lose any more members. They assembled the entire enforcement team and raided. Tae-min ordered to protect and support HyeonJoon from behind. Many people died under the enemy's blade. Realizing that the situation was not good, the leader of the Eco Guild decided to join in. If he defeats him, the other minions will automatically retreat. HyeonJoon directly stood up to fight the leader. The 2 swords collided with each other, and because of that, a lot of mana escaped. HyeonJoon completely blocked all of his attacks. Sidon Miller's swordsmanship was really strong, and then he forced him into a passive position. Suddenly he was attacked by a guy outside. Although he blocked the fire, he also created an opportunity for him. HyeonJoon quickly blocked the sword. He advised him to surrender, because more than half of the race people had been killed. But surrender was not in his dictionary. HyeonJoon was still determined to counterattack the leader. And this also means that you will have to defeat many enemies alone. The Eco Guild's wizards continued to attack. HyeonJoon was forced to kill them first. But now his magic power was exhausted. He asked for help from Carthago, Hashashin, Sidon Miller, but no one answered. He prayed to another soul, any soul, and finally a soul responded to his call. The blood of the carnage awakened the killer Reaper, who was sleeping. Some dead lives will be freed. He heard your call, and rose from hell. Dark magic covered his body. Killing words were constantly running through my head. Magic power was being loaded into my body. He pushed mana into the sword and then gently moved back, killing 2 enemies quickly. The smell of fresh blood stimulated Reaper. In that moment, his hunting instinct turned him into a cold-blooded killer. The enemy's weak point was already in front of him. He just needed to slash at those places. Enemies were repeatedly killed under his blade. Only 2 people left. With the power of the Reaper it should be enough. They also did not want to wait to die, and quickly counterattacked. HyeonJoon struggled to resist. His body also weakened a lot. But it didn't affect his sword much either. He directly killed the other guy. He tried to break his sword, but the dark magic made him give up on that thought. Even so, he still managed to hold onto the sword, giving the leader a chance to strike. But HyeonJoon not only knows how to use swords, he also uses shields very well. Captain Iko was defeated after a single attack from HyeonJoon, even though he was an A-level swordsman. The other guy tried to run away but he didn't let him. Sent him to hell. The war will end if one of the two guilds is destroyed. HyeonJoon needs to kill all of the Iko guild to be sure. So even if the enemy lost the will to fight, he still had to kill them all. The battle is over, the race has won. HyeonJoon alone killed 6 enemies, including the captain of the Iko guild. This proves that the Reaper soul has helped him a lot. The reward HyeonJoon won after this battle is 150 million won. As soon as they failed on the battlefield, they immediately informed the vice president. He announced that a mercenary from the race guild had defeated many members of the guild. The vice president ordered an investigation to find out who that mercenary was, who could sweep an entire party. 150 million for an unpublicized clan battle in return. HyeonJoon had to risk his life. But for his family, the children at his orphanage will do everything to make them have a better life. The next morning, HyeonJoon prepared a gift box and stood in front of the orphanage. He opened the door and walked in. In front of him was Sojin, his childhood friend. She came here to take care of the director's health. She is also old, so her health has deteriorated a lot, but she still insists that she is healthy and tells Sojin to return to be a hunting assistant. She is the one in charge of clearing the dungeons, and her current rank is C. It will be difficult to arrange the work at the orphanage and cleaning the dungeon. HyeonJoon told Sojin to pay attention to taking care of her health. She smiled and said thank you. Today HyeonJoon came here bringing a lot of things for the kids, cookies and a few other things. He would be happy to see the children grow up day by day. His purpose of making money is just to take care of this orphanage that he considers his family. When asked by the director if he did anything dangerous, he tried to avoid the answer. The director is very happy because HyeonJoon has grown up a lot. From an isolated child, Sojin was his first friend. Both of them happily went through a long journey, even after graduating from high school. When he awakened his hunter power, even though he was only F level, everyone was very happy. This was the happiest moment of his life. And now he has grown up, becoming an adult who can shoulder the family's debt. The money he earns will be used to pay off the orphanage's debt. When the children saw HyeonJoon, they were very happy. The children competed to open the gift box in his hand and did not forget to say thank you. But then the kids abandoned him, because of the pizza. When HyeonJoon came here, he bought another pizza for everyone. He and Sojin also went inside to eat with everyone. The children ate very well. After all, this was their first time eating pizza. Suddenly the soul of Sergeant God warns of the existence of a stalker. HyeonJoon immediately reacted and told everyone to hide under the table. He quickly pulled out his shield, and blocked the sudden attack. The explosion destroyed the entire wall. After the smoke and dust cleared, HyeonJoon immediately went into fighting mode. Carthago the Shield of Justice, and Miller the Sword Saint, both are blessing you. Sojin wanted to help, but she was a recovery support so she couldn't do anything. There were 20 of them and they were all C-rank hunters. In front of the overwhelming number, but HyeonJoon was unafraid. You will face all 20 assassins alone. They all rushed forward at the same time, using many moves. Thanks to Carthago's protection, he was not injured at all, but instead, he quickly counterattacked. He cornered one man and slashed him with one slash. The remaining guys started to feel scared. The leader ordered an attack on Sojin and the children. He didn't have time to run over to block the attack, so he had no choice but to throw his shield to block the attack. He didn't have a shield to protect him, nor an opportunity for them to attack, but Miller's swordsmanship was powerful. He swung his sword at them, and killed 3 of them. His body was injured everywhere, but there were still 11 assassins left. He angrily shouted loudly, "Save me and Reaper. The murderer has awakened, he will solve your deadlock." Then the dark ropes appeared. HyeonJoon took the opportunity to kill 2 more people. After that, he was exhausted and the Reaper's dark power was neutralized. HyeonJoon tried to resist but was still seriously injured by them. In the end, his body could not bear it and fell down. Sojin quickly ran out to recover, but the wound never healed. His condition was extremely serious. His consciousness gradually lost and then the words of a soul came to his mind. That person said, "Fight to protect your loved ones. If needed, he will lend you his strength." Another mysterious door will appear. HyeonJoon pushed the door open. In front of him was a pile of corpses lying around. And the person sitting on that pile of corpses is the next soul that will give him power. His name is Danzig, who cannot protect important things. In his eyes there was only hatred and despair. He did not allow him to follow his own mistakes because he was their reincarnated soul. If you are confident enough to endure Danzig's pain, he will give you the strength to protect those you love. HyeonJoon clenched his fists and firmly affirmed that as long as he could save them, he would do anything. Danzig was satisfied with the answer, and showed him his own past. HyeonJoon appears in a beautiful flower garden, where he will not be able to speak or participate in the story. In the foreground is Danzig in his youth. He has an adorable young child. The two people are extremely close to each other. Next to him is Anna, his beautiful wife. Danzig's family is all safe right now. They are very similar to HyeonJoon's relatives. Then Craig ran over in a panic to announce something important. The invasion command has been established. They are targeting their kingdom and hell begins from here. All members of his family were killed, including close subordinates. Everything happened right in front of him. This despair made his soul always tormented. Danzig's screams of pain awakened HyeonJoon. If he cannot protect the children at the orphanage, everything that follows will be a tragedy. Danzig looked helplessly at the enemy standing in front of him. He shouted to them, "What crime did his family end up doing? Why did things turn out like this?" He didn't care and trampled on Danzig's body. He just got angry and lay there waiting for his death to come, and then he ended his life. This is what happened in the past. Currently Danzig has given strength to HyeonJoon. With this energy, he will have more courage to protect his family. Danzig has transferred all his remaining enthusiasm to HyeonJoon. The rest is up to his own determination. HyeonJoon has regained his confidence. His body radiated enormous energy. He stood up as if nothing had happened. Strength overflowed within the body. The people he was unable to protect, with Danzig's power in his body, as long as there are people left to protect, he will not fall. Along with the energy emitted from the Sidon Miller sword, as long as there is righteousness, the sword will never be broken. The cruel killing intent of the god of death has awakened. HyeonJoon released a fatal killing intent. The entire room was covered with demonic energy. HyeonJoon began to attack. His blade was now stronger than anything. They do not intend to sit still and wait to die. The leader launched an all-out assault. The lightning magic fell directly on HyeonJoon's body, but he still stood there, just his clothes were torn a little more. He didn't expect that his mortal body could withstand this high-level magic. The assassins now realize, HyeonJoon is much stronger than the information they have. He took off his torn shirt and continued to attack. Only this time his sword was much sharper. The melee fighters were all killed by him in one hit. The mages behind quickly unleashed their firepower. HyeonJoon lightly dodged and slashed straight at the leader. However, he is also not average. After blocking his attack, he launched a fatal slash. Although he tried to dodge, he was still touched by the sword. He looked at Sojin's panicked face and told himself he couldn't fall here. He regained his will and attacked back. The sword line emitted a tremendous amount of power. Finally he pierced the leader's body. He was still thinking about taking revenge on him later, but HyeonJoon tore him apart in an instant. He then looked at the other two, who trembled and surrendered and begged for forgiveness. HyeonJoon was silent and didn't say anything. He coldly lifted the sword and killed those two. Everyone in the orphanage was safe. HyeonJoon was exhausted, leading to fainting. He woke up in the hospital. Apparently his injuries weren't too serious. Sojin and Tae-min were waiting for him here. The Race Guild apologizes for their tardiness that led to things going too far. Most of the race people are entrenched in this hospital, so they won't be able to attack easily. While he was in a coma, something happened. First, Sojin was investigated by the police. The second thing is that the headmaster and the children are at the Race Guild's headquarters. They will be protected safely here. And there is one last thing, that is in the race, there is an insider. HyeonJoon wants Tae-min to completely deal with the spy. He will use all means to track down and deal with him. Soon after, Tae-min received a call that he had caught a spy. Tae-min goes to the spy detention place. He is tied to a chair. Tae-min hit his leg so hard that he cried out in pain. He was scared, repeatedly apologizing, but that did not affect Tae-min's interrogation. He pulled out a sword and began the interrogation to get a statement. Back with HyeonJoon, he entered the room of his previous life. There he meets Hashushin, the master of darkness. HyeonJoon frankly said that he needed Hashushin's strength. He wanted him to impart his secret arts and assassination skills to him. That's also what Hashushin intends to do. He will teach him complete invisibility. This was a high-level magic, even S-rank hunters couldn't do it. Hashushin goes straight to the point. He will explain in an easy-to-understand way. Simply put, invisibility is a form of magic that allows the user to hide in darkness. It's a high-level magic, so it consumes a lot of magic power. Hashushin will trap you in endless darkness. Because to hide in the dark, it is necessary to have a high compatibility with the dark. And being imprisoned in the darkness without end could lead to madness, but HyeonJoon is ready to accept the challenge. Darkness covered the entire room. As the days passed, his mind gradually eroded. HyeonJoon seemed about to go crazy. He didn't know how much time had passed. Can he complete the terrifying training? Unanswered questions continuously echoed in his head. HyeonJoon hugged his face and experienced torment in his mind, and then he hallucinated. He saw an image of himself in the past. They kept laughing and insulting him in the face. More and more of them appeared, and then the pain of the past made him awaken. Hashushin appeared and erased all the darkness in the room. Although he didn't necessarily pass the test, daring to confront the illusion helped him gain some power. He now had control over the Hashushin Sargent God invisibility technique. Dominating the mainland is only a matter of time. The soul door closed. HyeonJoon woke up in the real world. He looked at the time on his phone. It hadn't even been an hour yet. Yet he felt like a year had passed there. At this time, Tae Min walked in and announced about the spy. HyeonJoon also asked more about the Echo Association's actions. Reports showed that they were preparing for a second attack. Hearing this, HyeonJoon immediately stood up. You will go and wipe out their execution gang. With your current strength, it's entirely possible. Standing in front of the Echo Association office, HyeonJoon entered a state of darkness. You will begin your assassination journey. Two guards were talking to each other. Suddenly one was killed instantly. The other man panicked and pulled out his gun, but before he could react, he was killed. HyeonJoon comfortably hid in the darkness, his body completely hidden. Next he rushed straight into the hallway of the organization. He passed other people like there was no one there. The night training really helped HyeonJoon a lot. He found the company's main power source and destroyed it. The whole building quickly fell into darkness. The guards sensed something unusual. One of them ran to check, but on the way was killed by HyeonJoon. He then teleported behind the other guy, and quickly killed him. He looked up to the 4th floor. The Eco Association's office was located there. Just kill them all and consider the mission complete. In the office, the deputy director noticed something unusual. Other buildings are still operating normally, only their building is without power. The deputy director ordered his subordinates to all bring weapons and get ready to fight, but immediately after that, 2 sea-level hunters were hacked to death. The light magic was activated, and they were bewildered by the departure of their comrades. The captain didn't even sense the intruder's presence. HyeonJoon felt uncomfortable with the light in front of him. Because of it he couldn't see clearly. So he would kill the light magic hunters first. They tried to maintain formation and run lighting planes, but it was useless against HyeonJoon's absolute power. He killed many hunters present here, leaving only 3 people, the captain and 2 weak hunters. He began to get scared, and suspected that the intruder was an S-rank hunter, and then 2 C-rank hunters were also killed. Only the captain, who was trembling, was left with fear. He shouted, "Stop hiding," and frantically slashed around the room. HyeonJoon didn't need to hide anymore. He officially revealed himself in front of him. When he heard his voice, he got mad. His hatred for HyeonJoon stemmed from the Hyejin incident, because he was the only one left alive after the dungeon, so he blamed him for killing Hyejin. And the person she got in the car that day was him. HyeonJoon is no longer an F-class loser. He had the power to protect his loved ones. Because he destroyed the orphanage, HyeonJoon came here to take revenge. He tried to attack him, but someone with the protection of heroes like HyeonJoon could easily handle this. He is an aura user, equivalent to an A-level hunter. There is no doubt that an A-level hunter's abilities are very strong. Because of his strength, he was able to confront HyeonJoon directly. His sword is clad in fire energy, and his slashes are also very powerful. His whole body glowed red, but that didn't make HyeonJoon tremble. He even mocked him for being so incompetent. and a rank hunter that failed under your skill. Thanks to crossing the boundary of life and death hundreds of thousands of times, he was able to endure the pain emanating from that fire. He continued to attack. 1 slash was blocked by him. 2 slash, he blew the sword away. HyeonJoon fatally slashed him right in the middle of his stomach. He clutched his stomach in pain and shouted, "Do you know who's behind our group?" HyeonJoon didn't hesitate to kill him instantly. It turned out that there was still someone behind this incident. His family could still be in danger. At this moment, suddenly his head hurt so bad. The spirit of death wanted him to help him get the things he had in the office. The red aura led him to the hidden object, which was a short sword and chain. HyeonJoon took the object with him, and started using Hashushin's power. The corpses will be burned, and the building will be blown up. Thus, the criminal evidence of HyeonJoon will be completely erased. The big burning building attracted the attention of the people. Especially the special police are also present here. The captain asked the people to gather more information. At this time, the subordinates rushed to report that there was no one in the building, not even a body was discovered. HyeonJoon stood in the dark corner listening to the entire conversation. He felt secure because he had cleaned up the evidence, but if he stood here he would be suspected because his clothes had burn marks. HyeonJoon called Tae-min to report the situation. But before he could say a few words, his body suddenly lost its strength and fainted on the spot. On the side of the congressman's building, the secretary informed him that the Eco Guild had been annihilated. The spread of the fire caused damage to the functions of the enforcement team. He had invested a lot of money in the Eco Association, so this failure caused him a huge loss. The secretary also said, during the war with the race group, there was a mercenary who helped them defeat the Eco group. The congressman thinks that Oh-sung group may have had a hand in this. He ordered the secretary to summon the Silver Tier group to deal with the race group and HyeonJoon, who was believed to be a mercenary. HyeonJoon enters another world, the room of a previous life. He met a person claiming to be the god of death here. He came to get the object he had asked HyeonJoon to get earlier. Inside, only the necklace remained, and when he saw it, he cried with happiness. This is the last keepsake left by his beloved. The image of his wife suddenly appeared before him. The two people loved each other very deeply. This love transcended all laws of time. Even though hundreds of years have passed, he still loves her as much as ever, and what makes him happiest right now is meeting her soul. Thanks to HyeonJoon, thanks for your help. He said that he would definitely repay you for giving him this moment. To express his gratitude, the god of death increased his empathy towards his previous life. HyeonJoon woke up with tears in his eyes. Perhaps because the touching story of the angel of death touched his heart. The ability to empathize with past lives is a form of ability. If you enter the room of your past life, you will be empowered by that person. Passing through the thresholds also increases your empathy for them. An increase in empathy can increase the user's strength. HyeonJoon even felt their pain and emotions. That's why he cried when he witnessed the scene just now. Inside the wooden box is a short sword. Perhaps the necklace was taken by the god of death. He looked at the sword and quickly put it in his space bag. At this time, Tae-min came to check on his health and informed about the Eco Association. They suffered a lot of damage. It's only been a day, but the official members have already begun to leave the association. Special police conducted an investigation but did not find anything useful. The person behind the Eco group is still a mystery to HyeonJoon. The next day, HyeonJoon took the short sword to check. He was surprised because this was not a normal weapon but a sealed one. Sealing equipment is divided into several types. This short sword will dissolve each layer of sealing if it meets its special conditions. Currently, this short sword can absorb B-level magic and can arbitrarily strengthen the user's body. According to the information he found out, this weapon, the murderer, could reach S rank if he unsealed it to the last floor. In addition, it also has a recall function. Just say the word recall loudly, and it will return to the owner. The appraisal was completed. HyeonJoon directly brought out his VIP card to pay. Going outside, he received a call from Tae-min. He asked him to come check out the house he had chosen. The interior made him very satisfied. HyeonJoon immediately closed the order to buy this house. Seeing HyeonJoon's arrogant face made the heroes surprised. They didn't expect him to be so happy when he had so much money. Just like this muscular man, wouldn't it be better to use money to gain more muscle? Carthago slammed the table and shouted loudly, "I am extremely disappointed in you. Having a little money and having a good reputation is really embarrassing." Returning to HyeonJoon, he happily visited the children. They're safe, and Sojin is here too. He wanted to tell her something. Just now he went to sign the house contract. All house buying procedures have been completed. Sojin is very grateful for your kindness. Maybe the kids will like it too, but she's more worried about him. To earn that much money, he had to go through many dangerous battles. HyeonJoon said he was okay. He would hire security guards and install an automatic system. He just wants his family to live happily. After speaking, he was about to leave, but Sojin pulled him back. She wants you to sleep at home tonight. The atmosphere between the two gradually became awkward. She even invited him to eat together. But HyeonJoon shyly refused and quickly ran back to his room. Sojin sat alone on the sofa. She knows HyeonJoon wants to protect everyone in the orphanage because it is his only home. To do that, HyeonJoon had to suffer a lot. She didn't want to see him get blood on his hands and then lose himself. HyeonJoon lay on the bed thinking about Sojin's words at that time. It was the first time he saw her act like that. Right after that, Hashashin's warning echoed in his head. An enemy has broken into the room. HyeonJoon quickly took out the shield. There are 3 people in total. If you don't handle it quickly, your family will be in danger. HyeonJoon used his shield to block the assassination attack. He discovered one person was a wind-type assassin. His chanting speed is so fast, you'll have to use your shield to stop him first. He quickly charged forward. The short sword also suddenly flew in front of him. HyeonJoon successfully defeated one person followed by the other. He flew into the air and smashed the shield right into his face. 2 people had been defeated, but before that he had felt the traces of 3 people. Noticing something unusual, he immediately ran to Sojin's room. Indeed, she is in danger. Suddenly, the short sword from earlier flew to attack. HyeonJoon takes the opportunity, pulls out Miller's sword and kills the other. Even though the family members were safe, the race members didn't move at all. He immediately called Taemin, but he didn't answer the phone. Looks like the race below was also attacked. Before the special police department comes here, you will be the guardian of this place. The race club is downstairs. They suffered serious damage after the attack. Taemin's face became haggard. He is sad and tells HyeonJoon, the high-ranking members of race have been killed. The president's chair is currently vacant. After witnessing HyeonJoon sacrificing his life to save them, Taemin wanted him to sit on the president's chair. Even though he was not the strongest, Taemin felt hope emanating from him. Taemin begs HyeonJoon to lead his guild. In HyeonJoon's head, the voice of a hero rang out. He was very interested in the position of leader of a black organization, and found this offer very interesting. He advised him to accept. He was a bit hesitant at first, but when he learned that becoming the guild master would manage all aspects of the organization, including the execution team, he agreed to this request. Because then your family will be more protected. Right after that, he told Taemin to bring all the documents back to the association for him to study. The pride of race is that it has quite good financial condition, but the number of official members is very small and the organization of the association is not on a large scale. The previous guildmaster had formed the guild to benefit from the magic stones, and the execution team itself was just established not too long ago. HyeonJoon decided to change his operating plan. From now on they will follow the pre-planned attack strategy. In addition, they also have to pay attention to the person behind the eco group. Perhaps they will send more assassins to attack here. So the first thing HyeonJoon wants to do is strengthen the members of the association. Next is the acquisition of the Eco Association. It is said to be a purchase, but actually it is a public declaration of war between the 2 associations. The associations will send 9 representatives to compete in a one-on-one format. During the competition, if no one loses or declares a change, they will continue to face the next opponents in the arena. You must defeat all enemies to win the battle. HyeonJoon is thinking that he and Taemin will destroy all 9 representatives of the other association. And before the match started, he wanted to reveal his name in the list of members competing for the Eco Guild. The purpose is to make them subjective. Among the bodies that the Special Police Department is confirming, there will be a few people from Eco's enforcement organization. HyeonJoon will ask them to pay damages. He also guessed that the Eco Association would not pay compensation, but he wanted to take this opportunity to organize a fight with Iko in the presence of the police department. A few days later, Tae Min came to visit the children and by the way discussed work with HyeonJoon. Just like HyeonJoon's plan, the Eco Society accepted the declaration of war. Even so, the leader of the Eco Guild, Choi Na-young, was still very angry about the failed assassination. He looked at the match request paper and sighed. It seems that this battle will be the end for one of the two guilds. And according to the race guild's list of competitors, there is one B-level person, the rest are C-level. Choi Na-young mobilized 5 B-level hunters to participate, and thought she would win this match. The story of Race's declaration of war spread throughout the city. Everyone believes that the race group will not be able to win. The rumors reached the ears of S-class hunter, Lee Jin-ah, the second daughter of the jail corporation. She was sitting and talking with a level hunter, Park Sok-yeon. What surprised her was that HyeonJoon had just promoted to rank C and was able to climb to the position of guild master. He was originally ranked F, but after that life and death battle he was promoted to rank C. Sok-yeon continued. Hearing that in the middle of the B-rank dungeon attack, HyeonJoon destroyed the entire group of hunters. This is information from the dungeon management department, so it is completely accurate. They also suspected that he was the second awakened person, but because there was not enough evidence, they had to ignore him. Sok-yeon personally feels that HyeonJoon is a rare talent. If he continues to develop his strength in the near future, it is possible that he will become the top hunter. And to be sure, if he is the one who awakens for the second time, the upcoming match will be clarified. If you are truly the one who awakens for the second time, Sok-yeon will invite you to join his team. 10 days after the battle line meets, and also 10 days before the previous life appears. HyeonJoon always has to practice alone. Without the help of his previous life, his strength did not increase. HyeonJoon was a little angry at Miller's sword. He madly released a powerful source of energy. After a terrible slash, HyeonJoon remembered the past. When he was in school, he was always bullied by his friends. Only Sojin stood up to protect him. She is a beautiful flower that makes your life more colorful. And when he became the awakened one, he was very happy. He was happy because he thought that he had the strength to protect his beloved family. He tried to work hard every day, endure the humiliation caused by others, but in the end the results were too bad for what he put in. If he didn't have the soul of his past life, would he still be able to protect everyone? Or will he go back to being the useless incompetent of the old days? Thoughts kept popping into his head. HyeonJoon doesn't want to wait silently for help. He will break through his own power as long as he has faith. Miller's sword will never break. HyeonJoon tired to the ground, he covered the moon with his hand and felt the air. He would definitely win the coming battle. Whether he had a previous life or not, he would fight with all his might. HyeonJoon returned home with a tired body. The sound of footsteps woke Sojin up. She was very worried about his health. HyeonJoon finished showering and sat on the bed. He closed his eyes to sleep, and hoped that his past life might appear. HyeonJoon sank deep to the bottom of the sea. He struggled to swim out of the water. After 5 minutes, he couldn't bear it anymore and removed his hand from his neck, not expecting that he could breathe underwater. Suddenly a light appeared below. His body automatically went towards it. HyeonJoon gradually sank into that warm light. He woke up in a familiar room. Suddenly a hand patted him on the shoulder. It was Han Sojin. She happily pulled him somewhere else. The image of Sojin holding his hand like this has appeared in the past. She led him to a room, in front of everyone in the orphanage. Today is the day everyone congratulates you on awakening as a hunter, an important and beautiful memory. That day he was very happy, a happiness he had never felt before. Even though he looked back at that beautiful memory, he felt uneasy. And then, in front of him a giant shark appeared. It turned its eyes towards him and suddenly opened its big mouth to swallow HyeonJoon. He fainted in the monster's belly and then suddenly returned to his body in the past. The pain of the flesh, the image of those who fear the horror, and the image of the sister Sojin reaching out to protect her family. These images were deeply ingrained in his mind. They were debt collectors. The dean tried to kneel down and beg him not to scare the children. But he directly kicked her. Luckily Sojin protected her. She said loudly, "I will repay the debt." As a C-rank healing hunter, she has a pretty good income. HyeonJoon also spoke up about being an F-rank hunter and being able to quickly repay his debt. But when he heard that you were an F-rank hunter, he immediately expressed disdain. You can't refute because what he said is very true. Before leaving, he especially slapped him once. That night, although everyone was safe, it left a deep pain in his mind. Sojin tried to calm HyeonJoon's spirit but it seemed to have no effect. He cried a lot and that night was also the time he despaired of himself. And until now, he still tries to increase his strength because of the helplessness of that day. HyeonJoon opened his eyes, in front of him was the light of the future. He won't torment himself anymore, because now he has the power to protect everyone. He woke up again, the holy land of Carthago opened right in front of him. HyeonJoon was happy to see Carthago again. Right now he only has one wish, which is to be stronger than anyone. Only then will your family be safe. Feeling HyeonJoon's determination, Carthago showed a satisfied smile. It seems like he only desires this now. HyeonJoon pulls out his sword and prepares to fight. The next technique that Carthago will teach you is how to counterattack with a shield, which will be completely different from using a shield to fight. This is the strongest counterattack technique in Carthago's dimension. Instead of explaining it verbally, he will demonstrate it for you first. HyeonJoon launched an attack. His attack was very strong. But for Carthago it was nothing, he didn't even move a bit. When the two energy sources collide, Carthago's shield directly absorbs HyeonJoon's energy and then releases twice as powerful an energy source. This is the strongest technique that Carthago will teach you. What HyeonJoon needs to do is endure this huge source of energy. Immediately after that, a series of rays of light shot straight at HyeonJoon. Just when Carthago thought he had failed, HyeonJoon still stood firm after a series of attacks. He succeeded in adopting Carthago's technique. The day of the battle between guilds has arrived. Everyone was present in the race club's waiting room. Everyone was tense and scared. Suddenly, a guy from the eco group pushed the door and walked in. He blatantly scolded members of the race association. HyeonJoon stopped Tae-min from acting rashly. He went directly in front of him and warned him for the first time. If he refuses to come out, you will break his legs here. But he was not afraid at all and instead arrogantly scolded him. At this moment, HyeonJoon was really angry. He released a lot of scary murderous intent outside. The terrible pressure made him tremble in fear. HyeonJoon's face looked like death. He imprisoned him in a dark illusion. This murderous aura was like an evil eye looking at its prey. He knelt in pain in front of HyeonJoon, then he coldly said goodbye, go away. He was scared and quickly ran away, because he released a lot of killing intent, so he accidentally merged with the spirit of the god of death. He almost killed someone, but luckily he was able to control his strength. Witnessing this terrifying scene, the members of the guild were also somewhat afraid and they also had more faith in this young guild master. Going outside, in front of them was a stadium crowded with spectators. This is a testament to the fact that the hunter community pays a lot of attention to the guild masters. There were also HyeonJoon's family members cheering on the stands. The commentator announced that the battle between the eco and race guilds was about to begin. Please invite the players to step onto the playing field. Tae-min was the first to compete. He is full of enthusiasm. HyeonJoon only asked him to beat 2 opponents. And Tae-min's first opponent is Seo Jin-soo, a B-level mage hunter. The two sides heard the referee's signal, and the battle officially began. Tae-min immediately put on a fighting stance. While Jin-soo wasn't paying attention, he soared high and slashed the knife down. Jin-soo jumped back and opened the shield. But this did not affect Tae-min. He turned the knife once and cut through Jin-soo's armor. He fell to the ground and surrendered. Tae-min wanted to continue hitting him but was stopped by the referee. Tae-min was happy. His face bloomed looking at HyeonJoon. Round 2 is also about to happen. Eco's player continued to play on the field and then the person who collapsed to the ground was also a member of the Eco Club. Despite winning, Tae-min was also seriously injured. He looked at HyeonJoon and decided to leave the field. Everything is going according to HyeonJoon's plan and the person who will fight the remaining battles is also him. The opponent in the third match was Hunter Choi Hyo-jin, a B-level hunter. HyeonJin stepped onto the field and immediately activated an energy aura. The audience was very excited about his strength, including Lee Jin-ah. As soon as the match started, Hyo-jin attacked very strongly but compared to her previous life, the battle was nothing. He defeated his opponent and went directly to round 4. The battle became overwhelmingly in HyeonJoon's favor, and after a few attacks, he advanced to the 5th match. If he wins this match, the race clan will win. Will win. His opponent was Sang Yun, an A-level melee hunter. The match had just begun and Sang Yun acted very quickly. He launched a very powerful move, but unfortunately was dodged by HyeonJoon. He jumped on Songhyun and threw the shield forward. This time he will use Carthago's ultimate move, a full counterattack. Behind HyeonJoon appeared many energy swords. Following his instructions, thousands of blades stabbed toward Songhyun. After a terrible explosion, he signaled surrender. In the end, the race group also won. A proud victory in front of many people. Guild Master Iko failed miserably and left soon after. HyeonJoon thinks about merging the two associations together as quickly as possible. HyeonJoon walked out of the arena. Tae Min was waiting for you here. He was treated and recovered from his injury. Right after that, the members of the association all walked in front of HyeonJoon. Everyone was surprised by his strength. The more people talked, the closer everyone got to HyeonJoon. At this moment, Tae Min took action to resolve this embarrassing scene. Hung wants to talk to Tae Min privately, but he'll deal with these people first. Now that it was only the two of them, HyeonJoon asked about going back to the game. Tae Min recorded it and posted it on the Tube forum. Tube is a video posting site that hunters frequently use. There are many types of videos posted, from introducing weapons to read, to introducing magic types. It was not possible to record videos inside the dungeon, so HyeonJoon could only film battle scenes to promote the guild. At the same time, this video will be the most effective shield for your race. At this time Sok Yun appeared in front of the two people. Tae Min cautiously reached out to protect HyeonJoon. But Sok Yun didn't come here to cause trouble, but to bring Lee Ji-ah to meet HyeonJoon. He looked at her aura and guessed she was S rank. Lee Ji-ah happily greeted and introduced herself. She is someone that HyeonJoon often met on TV before. He extended his hand to greet her, and asked her why she came to see him. HyeonJoon only knows that Child Group does not have any affiliated associations. Because she didn't feel the need to form an association, but when she witnessed HyeonJoon's strength. She wants to invite you to become an executive director at Child Group's affiliated association. At this moment, King Romanov's spirit asked him to strongly refuse the offer. If he went against this king's intentions, he wouldn't be able to receive Romanov's protection, and he did what the spirit said. Sok Yun wanted to ask why. He replied that he didn't like having someone else stand above him. If she offered the position of president, he would reconsider. Jin-ah started to be unhappy. She felt that he was a bit confident in himself, but it was true that he was very confident in himself. His value may be a bit low right now, but it will definitely be different in the future. Because today's HyeonJoon will be different from tomorrow's HyeonJoon. Then he coolly turned around and left. Jin-ah was not angry but felt very happy. She will watch and see what you can do. Although the goal of the two of them today was to keep Yeon-jun, his request was too high so they had to ignore it. She confidently said that even if he was to awaken for the second time, he would only stop at S rank and then he would regret it and come to me. Too much work makes HyeonJoon tired and collapse on the table. Tae Min gave him the form and told him that the silver tier continued to invite him to the association. As for the jail group, even though HyeonJoon refused, they will support the race group. With their help, participating in the S-rank dungeon will receive more rewards. But there is one problem that HyeonJoon needs to improve, which is his own ranking. The reason why the Gold and Platinum guilds have not yet taken action is because of HyeonJoon's official ranking. There will be many people who are dissatisfied with your C-rank ranking. In addition, the video uploaded to Tube also had many positive responses, including from the dungeon management department. Maybe they will call you today. Tae Min went out to answer the phone, then panicked and informed HyeonJoon. Someone wants to meet you, and this guest is a bit special. It is one of 15 very rare diamond class associations in Korea. HyeonJoon quickly changed his expression and went outside. This person is the personnel director of the Innovation Guild, Im Dong-hyuk. He is a B-rank hunter. After a simple greeting, the three sat down to talk about the main story. He calls you a rising star. When he was invited to a regular exchange between leading associations, everyone there called him a rising star. Furthermore, any association that cares about discovering new talent will surely have seen your videos. He also came here for one purpose, which is to invite HyeonJoon to join their association. The contract is already on the table, if you just sign it, your career will skyrocket. But he still firmly refused, even though the conditions were very good, his choice was only one. HyeonJoon returned to work. After solving the problem, he received an invitation from Romanov. When he opened his eyes again, the light of the gate appeared before him. He slowly pushed the door open. Inside was all the gold, silver and jewels, and King Romanov was also revealed. HyeonJoon walked towards him, but the more he walked, the more pain his body became. Finally knelt before Romanov. He walked up to him and said, "I have been watching you for a long time." At first, most of the spirits objected and only Carthago stood up to help him. But before long, Sidon Miller and Hashishun both recognized him. His hidden power is shining more and more, so he will also give strength to HyeonJoon. Romanov held out his hand and began to perform the blessing. HyeonJoon's whole body suddenly caught fire, his body emitting flames that seemed to destroy every part of his body. The pain was tearing me apart, but fortunately the ritual had been completed. The cause of this pain was different from other souls, but he felt much better now. Romanov wanted him to use magic to rearrange the thoughts in his mind. He concentrated his mind to activate magic. In front of him, a small mirror appeared and suddenly it glowed and cracked. The scene that appears is a fierce battlefield, with bombs and explosions everywhere. At this time Romanov was the emperor of a country. His country was attacked, but he refused to flee. The final order from a king is for the soldiers to leave this place safely. The citadel was destroyed. Romanov smiled full moon. He pulled out his sword and shouted loudly. Then he rushed out onto the battlefield, but ended up being killed by the enemy. HyeonJoon woke up in a panic. It was just a Romanov scene. He couldn't concentrate on using his strength. Romanov didn't blame him. He smiled and said, "I will explain it to you carefully, so listen carefully. The way I bless each person is not difficult. Keep your eyes in a state of magical concentration and then turn towards the opponent and you're done. At that time, you will see the other person's true destiny, another name containing sincerity. Romanov is sure it will help you a lot. The time for the two of them to meet has ended. As long as you are under Romanov, he will always be by your side." Before leaving, he also said that knowing one's true destiny could also be a curse. HyeonJoon went to the living room to meet Sojin. By the way, since she was here, he also tested his new power. When he activated his eyes, he saw her true destiny. He happily sat down comfortably on the chair and asked Sojin about today's schedule. She volunteered to be a secretary to be with HyeonJoon more. It was time to go to work, so he went outside to wait for the bus. Seeing that, Tae-min finished his beer and followed him. By the way, he also checked his fate for him. That is the light of the blindly trusting knight. Arriving at work, HyeonJoon will receive a guest. He is Park Kyung-ho. A guest from the 2nd Division of the Dungeon Administration's Hunter Squad. He came here because of HyeonJoon's promotion. But before that, he wanted to see his hunter certificate. He was promoted to A rank as expected. He could now use this card to circulate in high-level dungeons. And there is one more thing that Kyung-ho wants to say, that is, wants HyeonJoon to become their exclusive hunter. And the request will come with conditions. HyeonJoon asked directly what their conditions were. Kyung-ho timidly hands over the contract. After reading it, he frowned. No matter how stupid he was, he knew that the treatment they offered was too low. He immediately gave it to Tae-min to solve. He was annoyed with this unreasonable treatment, an A-rank hunter who was only treated as a B-rank hunter. Tae-min walked in front of Kyung-ho and said, "Yesterday the head of Human Resources Innovation reached out. It was an extremely famous diamond association in the country." After hearing that, Kyung-ho could only look down in shame. He couldn't come up with better terms, because he didn't have the authority to do this. Ever since he saw your video on the tube, he thought they would never recruit you. Even though he really wanted him to be their exclusive hunter, the dungeon administration really didn't have the power to recruit him. Kyung-ho shyly picked up his bag and left. The day is coming to merge the two guilds together. It only takes 1 week to resolve everything. Sojin went out to make him a cup of coffee but bumped into Tae-min's chest. "He's here to tell you something important." The head of the reception and book handling department of the eco-enforcement team confirmed that the guild owner Choi Na-young had a black fund. Tae-min brought the processed documents and showed them to you. This black fund is so much that it is possible to set up a small association and still have enough left over. Tae-min came up with an idea that could handle this money in silence. There is still a little bit of internal documentation left, but as long as nothing goes out, this can happen. They can swallow all this dirty money. Tae-min went outside to smoke. He called Jong Seo to come out. Jong Seo is a B-rank combat-type hunter, and Tae-min's right-hand man. Jong Seo reported his mission and then Tae-min continued to give more missions, which was to handle the targets at the Eco Association. To put it simply, kill the rest of the Eco Guild. HyeonJoon didn't know about this, because Tae-min didn't want him to be covered in blood again. Heavy rain covered the whole city. In the dark corner of a small alley, Choi Na-young is struggling to beg for mercy. He was no longer a guild master, the only thing waiting for him was death. Tae-min pulled out a knife and decisively killed him. The Eco Guild was officially annihilated. Taemin assigns Jong Seo to handle the rest and he will return to meet HyeonJoon. Receiving the call, Tae-min immediately informed him that the General Department of Guild Management had completed the procedure to merge the two guilds. And now the Eco Guild will no longer exist. All relevant documents will be transferred here. Even so, Eco's members also started leaving the guild. They don't like working for the race party. According to Tae-min's statistics, the number of people leaving the team must be up to half and almost all the key members of the attack team have left. In order to attack the dungeon, the number of team members leaving the guild must be minimized. Even if it is necessary to amend the compensation conditions in the contract, it must be done. Right now, only Baek Han-soo was left with the remaining A-rank hunters. Initially, Eco didn't have many A-level hunters. The number of attack team members and regular members was small, so the size of the enforcement team was a bit larger than them. Eco was created for the purpose of doing dirty work for the power behind it, to put it simply. HyeonJoon wanted to meet this remaining A-class member face to face and he sat in the waiting room early. After a brief greeting, HyeonJoon looked at his true destiny. The pioneer has a righteous heart, that is the aura he holds. HyeonJoon said straight to the point, he wanted Han-soo to stay with race. The terms of the contract will be adjusted to suit his ability. Even so, he still felt like something was missing. It was that he wanted to attack an S-rank dungeon. In the Eco Guild, he had never attacked an S-rank dungeon before. That made him very angry. To put it simply, he was a crazy fan of dungeons. Only an S-rank dungeon could satisfy his killing lust. Right now race is not strong enough to attack an S-level dungeon. But soon, when HyeonJoon becomes an S-level guild master, entering an S-level dungeon will definitely be possible. Han-soo believes in it, because he watched your great match. That last counterattack was so perfect that it was terrifying. Realizing Han-soo's strong determination, HyeonJoon promised that, if he stayed in the guild and held the position of attack team captain, the first name on the S-level dungeon attack list would belong to him. Hearing that, Han-soo was happy and signed the contract. A few months later, more than half of the members of the Eco Association terminated their contracts and transferred to the Race Association. The number of people who did not sign was less than expected. It was all thanks to HyeonJoon's promotion to A-rank. A-rank hunters and above were the core strength of the country. The fact that he leveled up so quickly in such a short time made them expect a lot from him. In addition to the old members, the race must recruit new members. Regarding the promotional campaign, Tae-min suggested not to use the old achievements because of the merger. He will explain once again, the team's performance is judged mainly based on the number of dungeons the attacking team conquers or the raid defense rate. And the most effective way to improve performance is conquering dungeons. Baek Han-soo is having a hard time these days because he has to interview new members of the attack team, but this will probably take a day. Tae-min was scheduled to attack the B-class dungeon of the new assault team. At this time, Han-soo suddenly burst in and thought that the B-rank dungeon was a bit low. But because the additional manpower of the second team increased, the quality decreased. In order to facilitate the ability test, it is very reasonable to start from level B if Team 2 becomes stronger as expected. He will let Team 1 and Team 2 operate alternately, thus maximizing the strength of the two teams. Only HyeonJoon is enough to participate in this attack. Han-soo will stay in the office to plan for Team 3. The size of the association has increased, so adding a third attack team is also necessary. Taemin announced, Team 2 was already waiting in front of the dungeon gate. You should also get off the car and move there. At this moment, Sojin suddenly ran over and said, "I also want to join the dungeon." She wanted to go there to accumulate more experience to help HyeonJoon in the future, and of course he couldn't refuse his sister's request. The car moves to the gate of the B-class dungeon. Tae Min will guard the outside. HyeonJoon will greet the captain of Team 2. His name is Choi In-ho, his mission is to be a vigilant guard. He announced the addition of one new member. Since it was HyeonJoon's introduction, he didn't doubt it much. Following HyeonJoon's orders, everyone reconvened and began conquering the B-level dungeon. Deep into the cave, what awaited them were powerful monsters. HyeonJoon felt their footsteps. That is the Oak Demon. There are 5 berserkers and 5 regular Oak Demons. They started attacking everyone. The battle broke out. Choi In-ho activated the fire cannon attack, and instantly burned an oak to death. Realizing that the situation was not good, HyeonJoon officially took action. He flew up into the air to avoid the attack and then flew down to defeat one. We must destroy them as quickly as possible. The longer it lasts, the more dangerous it is. He continued to attack perfectly, continuously killing monsters. Finally used Miller's move to kill all the monsters. Faced with his tremendous strength, the other members were all full of confidence walking forward. People wonder how strong HyeonJoon is after all. The team battle that followed was quick and easy. Soon the team reached the final door of the dungeon. HyeonJoon gives the members a break before breaking through the boss. Suddenly the entrance door closed. This unexpected situation he had never seen before. He turned to ask In-ho, and he guessed that this was a hidden dungeon. Its difficulty is a big unknown. The inspector of the management bureau said, "This is a B-rank dungeon, at least it's an A class." Hearing the A-rank dungeon, the team members immediately wavered. Because from level A and up, the difficulty will skyrocket. In the immediate future, HyeonJoon will take time to correct the members' mood. In order to break through the dungeon, they had to confront the boss in the best conditions. The team rested behind the last door. HyeonJoon walked towards Sojin and said, "In 30 minutes the team will enter the boss room. Since this is a hidden dungeon, I try to keep a close eye on Hunter Choi In-ho, because it's much safer with him." HyeonJoon comforts Sojin, who is a healer hunter. The healer must survive to the end in order to save the other members. Sojin also understood his words and nodded in agreement. It was time to attack the final boss. Everyone gathered at In-ho's command. HyeonJoon instructed the team and then directly pushed the door to enter. Hashishin's sinister laugh rang out. It was a warning of the enemy's ambush within. Scary eyes lurking in the dark. HyeonJoon jumped up to dodge an oak's attack. With In-ho's support, he quickly kills the monster. In-ho then summons a wall of fire that destroys their opposites. After the smoke cleared, appearing in front of everyone was the Orc army, along with the Orc war god, and a rank superior monster. He began to use the power of the Carthaginian shield of justice, the mighty sword. Sidon Miller to attack. After a blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the Orc and launched an attack, but it dodged and counterattacked. HyeonJoon begins to enjoy this battle. He directly used Carthago's technique. The sturdy shield will turn into a spear pointed at the enemy. After a huge explosion, the Orc was smashed into the wall. HyeonJoon rushed forward, but at this moment the monster suddenly chanted a spell. A powerful attack flew straight at him. HyeonJoon didn't dodge and ate the shot. His mouth started spitting out blood. The monster slowly approached him, it even spoke Korean, and told him to die, human. It flew into the air and swung the blade at him. Things did not go according to Plan 1 at all. With Danzig's help he dodged that powerful attack. He quickly regained his composure and began to think of a plan. If the game continues to drag on, everyone on the team will be injured more. Suddenly the monster revealed an opening. HyeonJoon quickly put all his strength into the attack and slashed its body. It was finally defeated. Everyone's side had finished dealing with the remaining orcs. This was the first time he saw a demonic beast that spoke human language. It was much stronger than ordinary orcs. Everyone has also let their guard down. The arm was finally opened. Just when everyone was happy, a knife rushed forward and stabbed one of the team members. Sojin immediately started treatment. This is a fatal wound. This surprise attack would really kill him if it weren't for Sojin. Hashishin's laughter appeared in HyeonJoon's mind again. The attack from before was so fast that he couldn't do anything, and then another attack hit another member of the team. The foot of a monster appeared. It was the Holy Sword Orc, an S-rank monster of real. Orc Holy Sword started to attack. It slashed one of the team members, leaving HyeonJoon still standing there. Its eyes looked towards Sojin. It immediately ran towards her and swung its sword into the sky. At this time, In-ho stood guard, one hand holding the magic staff and the other pushing Sojin away. In-ho himself blocked one of the monster's slashes, but could not prevent its next attack. The monster sent In-ho flying, and another member also took action. He will stop it to give everyone a chance to escape. Ignoring the bleeding wounds, he picked up Sojin and ran as fast as he could. But the monster was too strong. It sent the black-haired hero and the orange-haired guy flying. While it slowly approached Sojin, HyeonJoon took action. He blocked the final slash that landed on Sojin's head. It seems like everyone has overcome the most dangerous moment. This monster deliberately injured others, to distract HyeonJoon's concentration. This orc is really smart. HyeonJoon immediately ordered Sojin to treat the members, but her body was also exhausted. At this rate, she will faint. He was aware of the need to quickly deal with this terrifying monster first. First, he won't let it get close to Sojin. He moved flexibly and quickly ran behind the monster. It immediately chased after him and grabbed his head. His power was almost completely absorbed by it. If he couldn't destroy it, Sojin would be in danger. He quickly regained his senses and broke free from its control. He then flexibly parried its attack, but the damage was so great that he was still hit. HyeonJoon counterattacked fiercely, but were neutralized by the monster. It suddenly told him about the sword technique he was using and even knew he was a disciple of the Sword Saint. Everything is beyond HyeonJoon's understanding. He tried to fight back, but it seemed useless. Carthago's protective shield was broken. He quickly retreated back to let Sojin save him, but it seemed like her magic was exhausted. HyeonJoon could only counterattack with his body full of injuries. He frantically attacked the monster. The slashes gradually became futile and then he was fatally stabbed by it. Sojin's face was filled with despair. Sojin's pitiful scream rang out. She quickly ran to HyeonJoon and used healing magic. Her hands were shaking. Her energy was also gradually depleted from using excessive strength, so Sojin vomited blood. She tried to hold on with the last bit of her strength, but in return she was met with complete despair. The Orc Lord lifted his head and threw it hard on the ground. It is happy to see human fear. Sojin summoned a short knife. She had no choice but to stand up and fight. This helped her remember her helplessness in the past. Because that day, she couldn't say a word to him. Sojin chose to turn away when he felt the most hopeless and miserable. Then when she turned around, he was already moving forward without stopping. Sojin set herself a goal from that day on. She wants to become stronger so that she can shoulder the responsibility of protecting her family with him. Even if she had to sacrifice herself here, she would protect him to the last breath. Suddenly, a golden light illuminated Sojin's entire body. King Romanov's voice appeared in her head. He granted her the noble position of paladin, along with the purest power. Her body recovered quickly. Sojin returned to the battle. She raised her hand and summoned the power of light. The dazzling energy made In-ho wake up. HyeonJoon was also surprised by the scene before his eyes. Sojin summoned many spears of light and attacked straight towards the boss. Seeing hope of victory, HyeonJoon called upon the power of death. Flesh and blood have awakened the sleeping killing intent of the god of death. Part of the deadly will has been released. By the time the monster was bound with death energy, HyeonJoon rushed to slash at its weak point, but the slash was still a bit shallow. He guessed that Sojin had awakened her power a second time. This power could be the breakthrough point for this battle. But first she needs to treat HyeonJoon. The power returned to his body. He directly used Carthago's move, dealing a fatal blow to the boss's body. Unfortunately, it's still alive. Immediately after that, Sojin continued to use the divine spear to attack the monster. After a final powerful impact, the Orc Lord was defeated. The victory belonged to HyeonJoon's team. Thanks to the powerful energy source, Sojin has activated a new power. It can heal the whole team in a certain range. An extremely effective wide area recovery move. The S-class demon beast has been destroyed. The entire team is still safe after the battle. It's just that a few members' injuries were quite serious and needed to be taken to the hospital for treatment. In-ho was so happy that he burst into tears. The warp gate has been opened. Everyone can finally go home. Sojin was the one who contributed the most in the battle. Just outside, Tae Min quickly rushed over. He heard Choi In-ho tell everything. The management department's mistake almost killed HyeonJoon's entire team. The others went to the hospital to check, and HyeonJoon and Sojin just wanted to go home and lie on their beloved bed. Tae-min has also prepared the car. The rest here will be left to him and Choi In-ho to handle. Tomorrow he will report everything back to you. When HyeonJoon got home, he immediately lay down on the bed and fell asleep. He went to King Romanov's room to ask questions. From the very beginning he knew that the power in that dungeon was a hidden dungeon. What he did was only a very small intervention, so that Sojin can awaken the hidden abilities in her body. Because she was his servant, his powers and blessings acknowledged it. Although HyeonJoon did not ask for this, Sojin met the conditions to become his subordinate, and what the conditions were, Romanov did not say. There is one more thing that HyeonJoon is curious about. Besides her, are there any other subordinates? Romanov replied yes, but he would not reveal his identity to him. Instead, Romanov revealed to him the number. In addition to the Holy Knight, there was only one person left. Over time this number will surely increase because he has the qualities of a king, so it is entirely possible. In addition, HyeonJoon also has a subordinate with absolute loyalty. That's Kim Tae-min. His destiny is to be a blind knight. On the side of the Dungeon Management General Department, the head of the 4th Division of the Dungeon Management Bureau, Lee Jin-hung, read the report on the Hidden Dungeon Handling Association. He was surprised that the Race Guild didn't have an S-rank hunter that could break through the S dungeon. This was so unbelievable that he wanted to go to the office to confirm it again. Going inside, he encountered the head of Department 3 of the Dungeon Management Bureau's Internal Investigation Department. He asked me to hand over all documents for them to investigate. Although he strongly disagreed, Jin-hung was forced to do what he said. Early the next morning, Tae-min came to report the information he had learned. He asked about Sojin's health. She still needs to recover more, just rest for a few more days and she'll be fine. It suddenly became stronger, making her not used to the strength. It takes a little more time for her to calm down and accept that she's gotten a lot stronger, but there's one more important thing Tae-min wants to announce. It's about the results of the Dungeon Management Department's investigation. They confirmed that the S-ranked dungeon was the lowest level, and in it, the results of the investigation were recorded in advance. That means the management knows clearly that this is a hidden dungeon. Surely someone purposely removed the results of the investigation, to put HyeonJoon's team in danger. Although the exact information has not been found, Tae-min is definitely the force behind Eco. HyeonJoon ordered to first use half of the slush fund taken from Choi Na-young to invest in the enforcement team and information team. This mission must be completed as soon as possible. They need to be ready to receive all attacks from their opponents. Before Tae-min left, HyeonJoon asked about the hidden dungeon. Simply put, it was a dungeon with hidden treasures. Tae-min thought he got a huge reward out of it, and he felt it would be better to increase the security at his own home. Because it is possible that the force behind it will expand the scope of the attack, there is a high possibility that rumors about the hidden reward will spread. They can also instigate other forces to attack the race clan for hidden rewards. Tae-min will hire an equipment security company, and arrange the main hunters of the enforcement team to protect around the house. He is one of the few people that Tae-min trusts. It was Ha Jong-seo, the captain of the information team. Romanov's eyes told him he was the perfect action shadow. Later on, he will be in charge of protecting the guild master's private house. When the news of HyeonJoon breaking through the hidden dungeon spreads, they will definitely not be able to avoid battles with others. But HyeonJoon is not afraid of that. If they dare to attack his guild, he will kill them all and let the whole country know what the power of the race guild is. This news reached the ears of the president behind the Eco Guild. Even though it was the lowest level, he couldn't believe that the race guild could break through the S-rank dungeon. All of the team members escaped alive. Just how strong Kong HyeonJoon is still a mystery, and Sojin's second awakening has not been revealed. Just as HyeonJoon predicted, he sent people to spread the news that the race group found treasure inside the dungeon. Outside HyeonJoon's house, there were more security guards. 2 people come back after practice. HyeonJoon's strength has surpassed Tae-min's a lot, and his stealth technique has also improved. Tae-min mentioned his shield. In the last battle it was completely destroyed. Although not a high-level equipment, this shield is a heart containing Tae-min's sincere feelings, only it is wrapped so carefully that it glows. HyeonJoon threw the gift aside and greeted the bodyguards. TAE Min hired a total of 10 people. 9 of them were ED-level hunters, the rest were C-level hunters. Although their rank was low, they were also hunters, so they would be more capable than normal people. And the entire team is equipped with guns. Hunters below D rank are very good at using guns. Even if you are a high-level hunter, if you take a bullet you will still die as usual. Tonight Jong Seo and Tae Min will also join guard here. HyeonJoon also felt more secure about resting, and the Hashashin's gate appeared before his eyes. Although I don't know when I will be attacked, Hashashin's appearance here is also luck. The blessing that Hashashin gave him was not enough to sense the approaching danger. So this time he needed a new power to be able to sense enemies at a distance. In the past time, he had used the blessing that Hashashin had bestowed on him many times, and as a result, the sympathy of the two people increased greatly. HyeonJoon caught the dark arm in the darkness. This was the new blessing that Hashashin would give him. If he had it, he could use the shadow to sense enemies in the distance. He was ready to receive this new source of power. Hashashin began to channel dark energy into his body. It slowly swallowed him into Hashashin's memories. A soldier of the royal capital, confronting an intruder. He uses the power of darkness skillfully. Even if the soldier slashes, he still cannot defeat the intruder. In the end, he was killed. Every time Hashashin saw this scene, he felt very excited. HyeonJoon painfully received new strength. Every time I see memories of my past life, it is an extremely terrible mental torture. But in return, instructions on how to use protection will be engraved in your mind. Hashashin is very happy, because this is the second time he receives the blessing. He will recall the memories of his previous life, from which the instructions on the move will be solved. Even if the move is difficult, it becomes simple for him. This will become clearer when you learn magic. Hashashin said, in 990,000 previous lives, there will definitely be a great magician. Each life is a unique identity in all different fields. If he received their full power, it would only be a matter of time before dominating the hunter world. Hashashin wanted him to try using the blessing he had just received. And the first time he used illusion magic, it succeeded. He tried to summon a second shadow but couldn't. His limit right now was only one shadow. Because this move consumes a lot of mana, it is always impossible to summon two shadows. But creating a shadow for the first time is also an extremely admirable achievement. It's also time for him to return. With the current situation, this shadow will be an effective assistant. HyeonJoon woke up early in the morning to exercise. The high-ranking guilds all had special intelligence teams, so they probably already knew about the rumor surrounding him by now. If that false rumor were to be leaked out, there would definitely be a guild taking action. He just didn't know which guild would act first. Taemin thinks it's Anderson because their reputation isn't good. Even though they were a silver-ranked guild, they always used some infamous and illegal tricks to get to where they are today. That's also the reason why they always have internal struggles in their administrative agencies. With that cunning reputation, they would be the first to act. HyeonJoon will send personal intelligence into Anderson as a spy. Probably the shadow art he learned from the Hashashin. For now, he won't reveal it to Tae Min. But the person HyeonJoon trusts, Tae Min will definitely not object. Back at the office, HyeonJoon created a shadow and showed it a photo of a person. Its mission is to silently monitor his actions. Probably the guild master of the Anderson Guild. And on the other side, the Anderson group has begun to take action. They will take the hidden treasure at any cost. The main mission of this raid is to arrest all members of the race association. If no one is caught, they will be allowed to kill them in the most brutal way. Even if the target is small children, they will kill them all. The executive committee of the Anderson Society, a cold-blooded army that carries out the most cruel missions in the city. They will take action tonight. The bodyguard heard the noise. He looked outside, but the assassin was above him and took him down. The security team outside the mansion has been defeated. They began to break into HyeonJoon's house, and the guards inside could not avoid being assassinated. Everything was defeated in the blink of an eye. Team 2 reported and prepared to attack the house. The captain ordered a member of the team to go up and open the door as long as someone appeared, killing without mercy. The soldier was about to touch the doorknob, but suddenly a sword slashed his arm. The assassination squad began to waver. They split up to find the enemy's location, but their exploration ability told them that there was no one around. That is HyeonJoon's shadow. It sneaks behind the enemy and continuously attacks. Each sword strike kills one enemy. The captain began to panic. If he continued to delay the attack, the whole team would be killed. So he ordered the whole team to enter through the window. But that couldn't happen. HyeonJoon's shadow blocked the entrance, and at this moment the main character of the story appeared. In his hand is the sword of Sidon Miller, and the shield of justice of Carthago, along with the protection of Danzig. His strength is enough to crush enemies into pieces. But he didn't do it alone. HyeonJoon summoned the race's enforcement team. All members of Team 2 appeared here. From the beginning, Anderson's assassination team was surrounded. HyeonJoon wants to make sure that not a single fish can escape from the net. Following Tae-min's command, the whole team started shooting. They couldn't dodge and were continuously hit by bullets. The captain gave instructions to quickly destroy the armed men. But they forgot one thing: no matter how they attack, they cannot defeat the enemy. Because on the race side, there is an extremely powerful healing mage. He shouted Kong HyeonJoon's name loudly, then swung his sword towards his shadow. Without spending too much effort, he easily defeated the captain. Then he ordered Tae-min to send a message to Anderson. Tell them the hostages are in your hands. In the hospital, there is a boy being treated for his illness. Next to him is his older brother. He is a hunter who wakes up for the second time. The boy does not want to eat rice and wants to skip this meal. But his brother did not allow that, because he still had to be treated, so the boy was forced to eat rice to gain strength. He will definitely treat you at any cost. Money is not an issue. The boy understood and then took the spoon to eat. There is one thing that the boy is very jealous of his brother. That is to awaken the power of the hunter and participate in the journey to explore the dungeon. He promised the boy that he would definitely do his best to become a great hunter that he could be proud of. It was a lost memory of law enforcement manager Anderson. His name was Lee Gyu-won. Now he will go submit a report to the guildmaster. He was having fun with the executive director in the association. She is also a person who loves money and abandons human nature. What Lee Won wants to announce is that the race assassination team last night was wiped out, leaving only 4 survivors but were taken hostage. Anderson Guildmaster Ahn Seong-jin was very angry. Not only about the failed assassination job, but also receiving a provocation from HyeonJoon. Won will narrate HyeonJoon's message in the most detail. Hold a press conference and announce who attacked us. If you do that, we will ensure the safety of the hostages, and if you don't, then you must prepare coffins for these hostages. Of course, Seong-jin did not agree to the deal. He directly ordered all executives to gather and prepare for the next attack. Ignoring Lee Won's advice, he calmly threw away the hostage's life in HyeonJoon's hands. Lee Won was really angry with this decision. He even threw wine in his face. His pride was trampled, but Won could not disobey the guildmaster's orders. He was obliged to follow his orders. As for the race group, after the failed assassination attempt last night, HyeonJoon's group received a huge amount of compensation. Tae-min announced that the investigator is here. He could only put aside his joy to welcome guests. But his attitude is not neat. After a few simple exchanges, he left immediately. As for the prisoners of war, they still refuse to reveal information. Perhaps stronger measures need to be taken to intimidate them. Even though they tried all the torture methods, they still did not reveal the information. HyeonJoon was tired and gradually fell asleep. Before his eyes appeared 2 doors of his previous life. One is the King of Pain and the other is the Selfish Executioner. The Selfish Executioner was quite difficult for him to imagine, so he would choose the King of Pain. Go through the door to go deep inside. The spirit's voice echoed throughout the room. He was dancing with a human skeleton. The King of Pain is officially revealed. Before his eyes, there were scary torture tools along with pools of blood splattered all over the floor. No matter how he looks, he still looks like a crazy man. He introduces himself as Pierre and this human skeleton as Ilyas. HyeonJoon will get straight to the point. He needs the strength to be able to torture other people's pain, and he needs the power that Pierre holds. He won't teach you how to torture others, but instead has a special power, far more terrifying than torture. Simply put, he can control other people's pain. If he wanted, he could make a person's life worse than death with just a simple tool. If there was a limit, Pierre would probably have to inject his magic into the opponent's body. The main tool is a needle, which is the most convenient way to inject magic. Ruling over pain, the power that turns the living into soulless corpses. This is a wonderful ability, and of course it requires activation conditions to awaken. The condition is to endure Pierre's 3 needle punctures. As long as you don't give up halfway, this ability will be yours. HyeonJoon has mentally prepared himself to receive new strength. Pierre begins the power-transmitting ritual. True to the name of the Pain Master, just one simple spell made HyeonJoon's body excruciatingly painful. Pierre happily continued to torture HyeonJoon's body. He is truly a perverted crazy man. HyeonJoon was bleeding everywhere but he still didn't stop. The final blow directly caused him to faint. Despite receiving Pierre's blessing, the price to pay was not small. HyeonJoon woke up scared after being tortured by Pierre 3 times. He quickly contacted Tae-min to ask about the whereabouts of the prisoners. HyeonJoon wants to try out the new ability that Pierre has blessed him with. In addition, he also instructs Tae-min to absolutely protect his family's safety. Going to the place where the prisoners were kept, HyeonJoon directly met the captain yesterday. First he would try talking to him, but it didn't seem to work. HyeonJoon had to use Pierre's ability. You'll test it on his accomplices first. Power begins to develop. With Pierre, pain can be controlled. He used it to penetrate the heart, then decisively crush the heart. The pain caused him to fall to the ground and die on the spot. The captain finally knew fear and would tell all the information he had. The rest will be left to Tae-min, and everyone here. After 1 hour of getting information, he synthesized all the data that the prisoner gave. But the fact that there is so little information about the Anderson Society that leads to consolidated data is a bit of a challenge. Anderson's side still denies being behind this assassination. Looks like HyeonJoon wants to personally negotiate with the Anderson Guild. He wanted to put pressure on them so they made things easier. Tae-min tried to stop him, because they had many despicable tricks, absolutely unsafe, but HyeonJoon was confident in his abilities. As long as he himself had Hashishin's blessing, escaping was easy. Besides, if Anderson collapses, the other guilds will not be able to take action easily. HyeonJoon wanted to preemptively attack Anderson. Said to do it the very next night, he immediately went to the Anderson Guild headquarters. He walked up to the guards and told them, informing you guild masters, that the guild master of the Lace Guild is here. HyeonJoon was allowed to go inside under the escort of 2 security guards. He took the elevator to the 5th floor, where the guildmaster Anderson worked. What greeted him were 2 hunters holding weapons. They wanted him to obey the rules of this place, but HyeonJoon did not want to be humiliated like that. He was angry and directly activated the power of the god of death. His godly powers were revealed. The hunters who had been bossy just now were now painfully frightened by this terrifying power. One of them fell to the ground from a heart attack. Before HyeonJoon killed the hunters, their guildmaster also spoke up. You went into Seongjin's office, he was already waiting for you here. HyeonJoon doesn't want to waste any more time. He'll get straight to the point. Just a few days earlier, his family had been attacked. You sent a text message but he didn't bother to reply. He asked him again if he had a hand in this case or not, in return for Seongjin's disdainful laugh. Right now he was very angry, but because this had a big impact, he needed to calm down. This was followed by the threat of Guild Master Anderson. He thinks that HyeonJoon's guild is bronze level, so he needs to change the way he addresses him. But HyeonJoon laughed, perhaps he had predicted this. HyeonJoon also had nothing more to say, he left a threat to Seongjin and then quietly left. Returning to his guild, he happily informed Tae-min. All they need to do now is wait for the dispute to break out with Anderson as planned. And the Lace Guild is also in danger. Many other guilds are interested in the special treasure from the hidden dungeon. Although it's just HyeonJoon's personal speculation, he thinks that the person pulling the strings behind the scenes is trying to make the appraisal more difficult by putting pressure on the authorities. They even put pressure on the special police department. Perhaps the identity of the mastermind is most likely a high-ranking politician or president of a large corporation. In the current situation, asking for help from the police is extremely risky. It might be a bit unusual, but Tae-min thinks the only choice is to launch an unofficial clan battle. That's what Tae-min thought. At this time, Jin-ho informed about the problem that had arisen. Last night, 4 guild members were brutally killed. The special police department identified the culprit as a hunter and began an investigation this morning, but they said there were no clues at the scene. This is probably the response of Association President Anderson. HyeonJoon can't take it anymore, he's going to deal with all of their executives. The remaining job assigned to Tae-min is to mobilize forces to focus on protecting the members of the association. There is one more important thing that HyeonJoon wants to leave to Jin-ho. It is investigating information about Murray University Hospital, where Lee Won's sister is being treated. This could be the key to helping him find Lee Won's weakness. 2 key members of Anderson are smoking outside on the riverbank. They just killed the new members of the Lace group. Among them was a D-rank hunter who had just turned 20 years old. They killed people without hesitation, even torturing the corpses, but immediately afterwards the manager was killed with a fatal shot. That was the black aura emitted from HyeonJoon's illusion. He was scared and didn't understand what was happening. From the illusion appeared HyeonJoon went directly to battle. He kicked him into the river, and started talking. The first target Lim Kyung-joon was destroyed. Next is the person who killed the rookie of the Lace group. With this guy he will let him die painfully. He summoned Pierre's strength, and made a decisive move. This pain directly caused him to explode into 100 pieces. The water in the river was dyed red with blood. According to the information Jin-ho gave him, he killed all of Anderson's law enforcement managers. Their internals will surely become panic. According to the head secretary's statistics, Lace lost 4 official members and 6 unofficial members. As for Anderson, up to 20 key members of the association were lost with no clues found at the scene. This is the first time they have seen such a perfect destruction of evidence. In just 2 days, Anderson lost 20 senior members, including 7 managers and 13 executives. Even secret assassinations fail miserably. Seong-jin wanted to hear an explanation from Won. He replied that all means were used to attack, but the opponent's stealth skills were too perfect to sense the opponent's existence, so the entire assassination team was killed. In that assassination team, there was even Captain Park Yong-gyu, an A-level hunter, and the team members were all B-level. But they were still destroyed in just a few short seconds. Seong-jin gradually lost his temper. He hit the table and got angry with Lee Won. Secretary Lim suggested using a stronger method to attack. But Won believes that the guild's management force is seriously weakened. If they continue to attack, they will definitely lose to the Lace Guild. Secretary Lim didn't care about that, because she had a plan of her own. That is to continue to increase the obsession with the members of the Lace group, so that they weaken from the inside. If there is a special police intervention, Lee Won just needs to solve it and everything will be over. All of this information was heard by HyeonJoon's shadow. After hearing the information transmitted by the shadow, HyeonJoon had his own plan. If they make even one mistake, your side can completely win. Then he took the phone to call Tae-min. He needed to know that Anderson would increase the scale of attacks on the members of the guild. HyeonJoon said, there is no need to confront all of them. What needed to be done was to show them that the Lace group had tried their best. What he meant was to urge the special police force to intervene in this matter and put all his efforts to protect the members still had to be done. But the loss was more than he thought. 5 official members and 8 unofficial members were killed. The police force made no move to intervene. Tae-min definitely called them, but it seemed like they intentionally ignored everything. HyeonJoon will directly handle this case. He called a friend he hadn't seen for a long time. He is your best friend, and also works in the editorial office of a large company. HyeonJoon wanted to ask him to post this incident on social networks. And the next day it became a hot topic for everyone to search for. The police department was cornered and forced to send a reconnaissance team to investigate. In total, there are 2 companies and 1 squad with a total of 120 members. The small platoon was dispatched to the guild headquarters and the 2 companies were divided into 2 groups, dispatched to the dungeon routes and gates. The police have stepped in so Anderson will stop attacking from now on, but the Lace Guild still has no evidence against Anderson. So HyeonJoon will find the evidence himself. With Hashishin's blessing, this is extremely simple. He will go home and wait for information from the shadow. Everything else at the office he will entrust to Tae-min to handle. On the Anderson side, Lee Won panicked and ran to inform the guildmaster. He wanted him to stop using it, because this was very dangerous. The police department getting involved will lead to extremely serious consequences. Using that thing now would endanger hunters and even civilians. Won tried his best to stop Seong-jin's cruel behavior, but he threatened his sister's life. No matter how hard Won tried to protest, it couldn't change his decision. Finally he was dragged out without being able to do anything. HyeonJoon continues to hunt members of the Anderson Guild. Tonight he killed a total of 20 people, but they were all ordinary members, not high class. At that moment he heard a cry for help nearby. Two hunters were beating up civilians because they saw something they shouldn't have. Despite the boys begging, they continued to beat him, and the appearance of one person surprised HyeonJoon. A monster mutates from the medicine it holds in its hand, transforming its body and personality from a normal human into a monster 100 times stronger than a normal person, which is the effect of the drug called berserker. This is a banned substance that the state has banned for a long time. Perhaps the "it" that Lee Won mentioned is this banned drug. This is a great proof that HyeonJoon has been looking for a long time. He took action, and the first enemy he attacked were the two subordinates in the back. The other enemy was the berserker monster in front. He swung his sword hard and slashed a line behind its back, but it seemed ineffective. The monster even punched him away. Even though there is a shield, the pressure is still there. The monster turned its attack on HyeonJoon. It moved with lightning speed and unleashed a powerful punch. With Carthago's protection, he was still pretty badly hurt. Its subsequent punch forced him into the air to dodge. Once again he used Miller's ability to attack, but it still didn't work. The monster grabbed his leg and slammed it on the ground. The impact caused HyeonJoon to faint on the spot, but his will to fight did not allow him to fall. He also had to protect the witnesses present. Thanks to the courage to stand for justice, another soul came to help. It was Durandal, the hero who always defended justice. With power flowing through his body along with the protagonist's aura, HyeonJoon returned to the battle. After killing the monster, the police went to the scene to handle everything. No witnesses were killed. Their testimony was the fatal weakness that caused the Anderson Society to collapse. Tae Min came to buy coffee when HyeonJoon wanted to return. He reminds you to check the latest news tomorrow. There are some interesting news to be updated. Guildmaster Anderson was in a panic. He put all the blame on Lee Won and gave him the last task, which was to bring HyeonJoon's head back to him.